Ooh. It's scary when it pops up right on me.
Hey now. Oh.
Check out the room. Check out the room, everyone.
I guess it's Halloween time. Oh, you almost got me a... It wasn't a pick, it was a scratch! No!
I like the bears.
Ooh, it's Halloween time. It's getting spooky. Spooky. So good afternoon. Where are we? What country are we in? Good evening, everybody. Good evening. It's Wednesday. Metal Wednesday, the last Wednesday of every single month for the rest of eternity. And we're ready to rock tonight. We have a huge guest tonight. Well, not huge meaning, but huge in the sense of big time in the heavy metal producer, engineer, mix engineer world. A good friend of mine for the past, 16 years, something like that, Josh Wilbur, who will be joining us in about 20 minutes or so. So it's going to be an awesome show. Get your any kind of questions ready to go. He's worked with some killer bands. Brian, you want to run through a few bands? Brian, Brian
Sure.
Boner.
He has worked with Trivium, the last 3 albums, and their next album will be out in T-minus 2 weeks. No, actually, I think it's next Friday.
I think it's
T-minus.
I think it's T-minus 2 days. No, well, whatever it is.
No, the 8th, next Friday.
Oh, okay.
He's worked with Lamb of God on their last few albums. Dope.
He's worked with Lamb of God since I think 2007. Right?
So.
Wrath was the first and that's like one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best like metal album mixes. Like the production on that album is amazing.
Also, he's worked with one of my favorite bands, Gojira, on La Infant Sauvage. I don't know, I'm not French, I can't pronounce it properly. La Infant Sauvage, there we go. Album is amazing. He's worked with Soulfly, Killer Be Killed, a little band called Gizmachi, All That Remains. And he's worked like mixing on the last 2 Korn albums and much more, which, man, I've prepped for this show for months. And I have hours of material to go over. So Jay, you can go once Josh gets here.
That's what I figured. Then
it's just all me with all the questions.
It might be a short night for me, folks. But Jeannie's used to that with me, so you know. Get it? Hey, if you can't make fun of yourself, you can't make fun of anybody else. That's how I look at it.
Exactly. That's why I'm covering my 5 head tonight with this.
with a never mind. Yeah.
So, before Josh gets here, what's new and exciting, Jay? What do you have going
on? Do I have anything going on?
Did you get any new guitars that you sent back? Or
no, but we've been joking about it on the Friday show and the Saturday night show that from now on, when I order a guitar, I'm just going to tell them to put a return label in the box. I mean, you know, chances are, guys, it's coming right back. So you might as well nip it in the bud before we even get going here.
True.
So, and also the elephant in the room. I usually don't try to talk about my injuries, but this one's kind of in front of everybody. And I talked about it on the show a couple times, but I got this brace. Hopefully it's helping.
It is I don't know if Jay talked about it, but it was a terrible masturbatory accident. And
yes.
I hope we don't really talk about it. So I think we should just skip over that.
Yeah. So hopefully this starts to heal a little bit so I can play guitar and do other things without pain. So we'll see.
Just bideting real hard. Speaking of big, when you were talking about Josh, when I was at the gym a little while ago, I saw
Jim?
the juiciest...
Is that your friend Jim?
No, not Jimmy Hatcher, your brother-in-law. No, when I was at the gym, also known as Big Sky, there's the juiciest of juice bears there, and he was wearing a Meshuggah shirt.
Yes.
So I was about to make fun of him, but just grunting, just violently, just doing back. And then I saw he was rocking a Meshuggah shirt, and I was just like, all right.
Did he have the old earbuds in?
Yeah, he did.
Oh, so he was listening to some something probably really good.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So we
Probably Meshuggah, right? Probably Meshuggah. If I'm gonna wear, not that I go to the gym, but if I'm gonna wear a band's shirt to the gym, I'm probably gonna listen to that band while I'm at said gym, right? Wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Maybe
Well,
at least to get going, because that's what you're in the mood for.
Definitely.
You know?
Well, actually, I was listening, and I don't mean this, I'm not doing this to plug you, but I was listening to Omega Collide at the gym today. So,
And did you set world records in every single station that you went to, or whatever the hell you call them?
yeah, I did some dips, shrugs, Kegels, and I was just all over it today. And no, actually, Mike Balls sent me the video for Sky, so I've been learning how to play that. So, pretty cool.
That's cool.
Actually, I got a new guitar, which I would like to share with everybody.
Do I know about this guitar?
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Yeah, that's never mind.
Hold up.
Speaking of Jimmy, hello, everybody in the chat. We'll get to you in a few minutes. We're going to show a guitar, then we're going to do the particulars, all the channel member stuff that Johnny's probably sitting there like, why aren't they doing that yet? And
Ben Coombs, check this out. Little Steph Carpenter.
what's up with your internet? Your feed is.
What happened to your microphone?
Oh, sorry. I had to move it. Better?
Better.
How's this look? How's this purple look on me? Good? No?
Yeah.
With the double Fishman, double humbuckers?
Yeah.
It took me a good 10, 15 minutes to get used to how to play this. Just look where the pickups are. It's like right my chugging station. So
yeah,
I kept scraping.
there's really no, I mean, if you compare it to any other, well, this has a single in the middle, but I mean, you know, that's why I have to, the way I pick, that's why I kind of have to drop that middle pickup. I prefer two humbuckers or a humbucker and a single, which would be fine as well.
Right.
But that middle pickup, look at that, because that's right in that area where I pick. So that's the same thing on that one. That pickup is literally right there.
Yeah. So it took me a minute because I was just like, what the hell? I keep scraping the diddling the double humbucker. And then, but I got used to it. Came up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool. It's a lot of fun. This guitar is awesome. And it's pretty. So
yeah, it's a cool looking guitar. I mean, you know, if you're going to have a crazy color like that, have a crazy color like that. Go all the way with it. What was that? Oh, see you later.
Just rolling around.
You're getting a nice little setup there, man.
Okay.
Oh, wait.
So with this guitar, and this is, I told you, everyone, this is my favorite. So I like how the humbuckers are spaced out.
Mm-hmm.
So my picking area, I'm free to go. So my Jim Root Jazzmaster, I'm going to show this off every time. I love it. Love you, Jim Root.
We'll finish showing it off because Josh is almost ready to rock. So let's go through the particulars, and we'll get Josh in here in a few minutes. Yeah, who wants to vote on whether Boner Jam should change his YouTube name? Because anybody that tags him in the chat, we have to approve the message, and Johnny can't put Boner on the accepted list of words, I guess, to allow.
Did you see when I got raided that other night?
No.
Did you hear about that?
No. What happened?
It was awful, man. Somebody with 500, basically 50 people jumped right in, and it was just awful. So, oh, hey everybody.
Hey Johnny.
It's my night off. I already did 2 shows today. So I'm running the show behind the scenes here, but
Marathon man over here.
I've had my camera time today all day.
Well, let's go through. You want to do the channel stuff, Johnny?
I'm new at it, but I guess I can try it. So I guess here on Johnny Beane TV on YouTube, there's a channel membership program. If you'd like to become a channel member, well, let's explain. Jay, what is a channel member? What does a channel member mean?
I'm not one, so basically you get extra content, whether it's videos that are only available to those channel members. What else do you get with that?
You get your name in green in the chat, like
right,
Kurt 5150, like Robot Master Switch, who's also my buddy in Grand Theft Auto on Twitch. You get your name in green. You get little avatars next to your name. You get exclusive avatars in the chat.
That too.
All right, let's do this.
Avatar.
Right, there we go. So let's say, if you're a channel member and you're like, man, I'd love to really have a lot of John BLs. There's a lot of John BLs right there. Or if you want a Jay Hannon and a Captain Michael Smith, there you go.
We still got to get Boner Jams up there. We got to get a robot
Cobra Kai
platoon. We got to get some Boner Jams. Get the big 5 head going on the
My hairline starts right here, guys.
Yeah. How do my bangs look? I remember Jimmy with that.
There's some Nerd Halens in there.
Nerd
Hey,
Halen.
Caleb. Hey, man. A lot of Mancuda. All kinds of stuff. And there's a couple different me's in there as well. So you get as a channel member, you get exclusive emojis for the chat, and you get huge shout out in the beginning of every show. Almost every show.
Like that.
Like this. Top tier channel members exclusive. I've been talking all day.
You've been drinking all day.
The executive producers for John Beane TV are Dave Ennis, Mike Neese, Music Therapy Laz, Majestic, PB and J Cat, Wayno, False Flag, who it was great talking to you last night in the Discord, man.
Wait, I thought you were the same person.
We're not the same person. We're actually not. You'd have to be crazy if you thought we were. Andy Carson, Michael B, Arhabs, The Chad, Lenny Lou and Mary, James Gum, John Moronic, Stephen Franklin. Stephen, was that you that was talking to us over in on Amazon today? Was that you, man? We did an Amazon Live today, talking with Brad Tolinsky and Chris Gill about the new book Eruption: Conversations with Eddie Van Halen. And there's somebody named Steven that was talking to us in the chat.
Oh,
was that you? Anyway, check it out. Check out my Amazon channel. Let's see, where are we?
We were at the captain, I think was next.
There we go. Michael Smith, the captain, Thomas Santiago, Joe Christian, and Steve Carmichael. That is top tier of channel membership here on Johnny Beane TV. And again, click that join button right below the 32 thumbs ups. Thank you so much, you guys. Thank you. And we're live on Johnny Beane TV Facebook page. Right there. If you'd like to help support, we got Facebook stars. This is a podcast. You can actually listen to this later on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Facebook, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, probably everywhere there's a podcast. So make sure to follow Johnny Beane TV on your podcasting platforms. And we actually have a special guest. You ready?
We're ready.
Bring them on.
Here we go. All right.
Can't wait.
All right. I'm gonna say hi, and then I have to bounce because I got some stuff I gotta do. Oh crap! Hang on.
Well, that's what it's about to do.
Everybody, welcome.
Whoa,
my man. What's up, dude?
I made it.
welcome.
Everything sounds good too. The video is good. The audio is good.
All right. Shout out to the hotel.
Are you in? Where are you in the hotel?
I'm in the living room of my hotel, I guess.
Wow, we got like the presidential suite over there.
Very nice.
That's it. That's
He's
it.
like, what did I get him? What did I get myself into with these guys now?
No. I'm good. I'm excited.
Thanks for coming,
Oh.
Josh.
No problem. I was like, we've been actually at Genelec studio in Boston here, or actually Natick, I guess it is, mixing Trivium and Dolby Atmos and having like the best time of my life right now. It's so much fun. So
Yes. So Josh called me today. What time was it? Like 10:30 in the morning, something like that.
yeah, it's pretty
10
early.
something, and he's like, "Dude, is the show today at 3 p.m. Eastern?" I'm like, "No, it's tonight at 9 p.m." He's like, "Oh, thank God." We almost had no guest again tonight.
Because I didn't realize. Yeah, whatever. That's like I literally just came from the studio, came straight over here. Like,
Well, you sound a little tired, you know?
I'm pretty tired. I was like, the reason I was calling you at 10 is I had a midnight end of the session last night and was like just rolling out of bed when I called you and driving back to the studio. I'm like, oh, what time are we doing this at? Please let it not be middle of the day.
So
Anyway.
for those of you watching, Josh, he recorded.
I'm a trapeze artist.
Yes. He recorded and mixed my band's first album, The Imbuing, back in. We did it in 2004. Came out in 2005.
It was nominated for 3 Grammys.
That's right. Didn't win any of them. But like Josh and I hit it off during that whole session, and then
started
he
dating.
moved, then I moved, and we kind of, we kind of hooked back up a couple months ago, and very cool of him to come on and do the show with us tonight. So
yeah, man, anything. I'm always happy to.
Yeah,
Josh, Brian, Josh, Johnny, Josh, Doctor.
Nice to meet you all.
Hey, Josh, good to meet you, man.
You guys look like you got a couple of good guitar setups going on around you.
Yeah.
Can you guys actually hear me okay? Is my audio all right?
Yeah, it's good.
I'm in like an echo chamber over here.
You sound perfect.
It's good.
Yeah.
Right, sweet.
It's good.
Sounds great.
So if only you could see the makeshift baffle I built, being the audio guy that I am around my MacBook. It's sick, dude.
Is that where the cushions from the couch are? Is that
the cushions in the couch are right around here building the diffuser, dude? It's sick.
Nice.
I was like, I wonder if this will work. I think it's working though.
Oh, it's working. Yep.
Wow,
Good.
that's awesome. I that's great that you even thought of that, because I think a lot of people. I mean, obviously, if you're a mixer, you would, but most people wouldn't think about that.
Well, my wife has done her share of podcasting, and she was like, I was on the way over here. I'm like, are the AirPods like they're good or they're bad for the microphone on the podcast? She's like, bad, don't do it. She's like, use the onboard mic, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, but I can still listen through it. And she's like, yeah. Okay. So
No, it sounds good.
I had technical assistance from my wife.
There you go.
Awesome.
And you're the audio guy, which is amazing.
She's mixing the next Trivium record.
Nice.
Oh man. So Josh, we might not even need me tonight because Brian Boner Jams has you should see the notes app that we share together, coming up with like show notes and questions. I might not even be a part of tonight's show. This might be great. So
Hey, see ya.
you know.
No, I've been pumped. Jay and I have been talking for the last year, and we have to get Josh on, because Josh, I'm going to fanboy out real fast. You work on some of my favorite albums of all time. So having you come on and just get to talk to you and just ask you some questions is, I don't know. I've been pumped all week. So thank you for coming on.
Well, when you bumped us last month, I had the pleasure of calling Brian and be like, dude, do you have your tissues with you? Because he's like,
I had a very legit reason too.
Yes, you do. Yes, you did. Yep.
Yeah.
So
No, definitely. But the like you've worked on, I guess I'll just rattle a few things off. The last 3 Trivium albums. The next one that's coming out next Friday, which I'm looking forward to. The last 4 Lamb of God albums?
he's lost count.
I kind of have with those guys because we did like a Burn the Priest record as well.
Yep.
So, and then I remixed As Palaces Burn. So, and I engineered Sacrament. So, Sacrament, Wrath, Resolution, Sturm and Drang, the new one, Palaces remix, and the Burn the Priest record. I've done 7 records with those guys.
And you did Mark Morton's solo album, right?
8 with some of them.
There we go.
Yeah.
Also, Gojira.
Yep.
I think you're the only person that's worked with Gojira producing, like, because Joe Duplantier has been doing it on his own, except for
first and the last. He was like, "Fuck this." Gojira was like a great experience. So it was really good. Like, Mario is like such an awesome drummer. Joe's such a like incredible player. All the guys in the band, they're all like sweethearts, like killer players. That was a good record. That was a good record to be part of. But it was Joe's first time working with a producer, and it was definitely some shell shock going on, you know, getting opinions from anybody else. And, you know, it was he steers the ship. He knows what he wants. So it's.
Well, there's definitely got to be and I don't mean to cut you off, Brian, but there's got to be a difference between a band that like wants an outside ear to kind of help them get to that next level, and then the band that is ramping up and then has somebody come in and is kind of trying to like suggest things, and they're like, wait a minute, what? So there is a big difference there, you know.
That particular record, you know, I think it was their first one on Roadrunner.
It was their first major label album. Yep.
The way I ended up on that record was totally by chance too. I was mixing a Lamb of God record, and Joe was just looking for a drum studio, and he just happened to walk into the studio while I was mixing Lamb, and he was like, "Yo, this is really cool. Like, maybe we can have Josh do drums on our record." And then the conversation kind of started, and it was like, "Well, maybe if you're going to do it, maybe we should just have you be like part of it, you know?" And then, you know, it just kind of escalated from there. But it was the most random, like there wasn't anybody's people talking to anybody. It just kind of happened out of this random chance meeting. I know it's a weird situation. Records don't normally happen like that, but that one kind of did. I mean, he knew of the stuff that I had done and whatnot, but
right.
You know, I was right place, right time, and doing something that he thought sounded good, and we just kind of jumped off from there.
Awesome. Since we're talking about Gojira, why not? I have a million questions. So I
haven't heard the new record, so I don't know.
First question about that is, since it is their first album on Roadrunner, does the record label reach out to you at all, saying like, this is their first, like, you got to make sure you're on your A game? Is there any pressure from the label?
No, I think sometimes bands put that pressure on themselves. You know, I don't think there's necessarily pressure from the label. I think a lot of times I think when bands are like, yeah, you feel this need that you got to outdo yourself. But I think bands feel that way every record, right? Like, this one's got to be better than the last one. Like,
yeah. The worst thing you want to hear as a band is, that's not as good as their last album.
You're definitely going to hear that no matter what, though.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what. It's I actually made an argument that I thought Metallica made Saint Anger intentionally, because like, what are you going to do after, like, you know, you do the Black record, you do Load, you do Reload, and like, those are like, I mean, maybe they're great records. But the Black record, dude, the bar is pretty high.
Yeah,
like,
where do you go from there? Can you go up?
You know what I'm saying? You can't.
Yeah,
it's impossible. No one's ever gone higher, right? Like,
right.
And I mean, I'm not arguing it's the best Metallica record of all time, but as far as success, it's pretty undeniable.
Yeah.
So what do you do right after that? And you try again, and you make Load and Reload, which have killer commercial success. Probably, I don't know, but imagine they're very platinum.
Oh yes.
And then I think at some point you're like, you know what? Let's just drop the bar. Like,
let's reset everything.
Just reset it, and then anything we do after that is like going in this direction again.
That's not a bad career move, if you know.
Actually, Lulu, right? That was the first. That was the.
Oh God.
Oh, we don't talk about that on the show here, Josh.
No, but right after that, Death Magnetic comes out, and you're like, dude, this is sick.
Hey, they're getting back. They're getting back to what they used to do.
Right.
Anyway,
yeah,
I'm gonna blow you off topic like constantly.
No, but that's the magic in all this stuff. I think is
right.
Just the random things that come out of nowhere.
Sure, Gojira. What were we talking about?
Yeah. Also, with Gojira, I know Mario and Joe are the two. I think the only two songwriters, right?
I guess I don't know.
So when they
They
come
had,
in,
they had demos by the time they came to me. So,
okay.
you know, I don't know if anybody else wrote any rest, but for sure, primarily, absolutely. Yeah.
So when they come in, the last album before you started working with them was The Way of All Flesh, which is my favorite Gojira album. Do you listen? Do you like if a band comes out to, and asks you to work with them and you might not be super familiar with them, will you listen to their stuff first? Like, or did you know about Gojira and what they were doing at that time?
Sure. I wouldn't produce a record for a band that I didn't think that I wasn't into, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't mean I haven't been handed projects that I didn't know anything about the band, but then I go listen to it. You know, if it is someone I haven't heard, and if it's something like I'm like, yeah, I can get into this, then I can produce the record. Sure. You know, mixing is a little bit different, you know, because I do a lot of just mixing, and you can kind of mix anything. You know, it's just you're just on a sonic quest at that point. But like getting on a production level with any band, you definitely are like, you got to understand where they're coming from. I mean, Lamb of God's actually a great example for me because I had not heard I take that back. I had heard Lamb of God in passing. I'd heard Ashes of the Wake. I guess I owned it as a fan, so I shouldn't say that, but they weren't super on my radar, right? And Gojira, same thing. Actually, I had bought The Way of All Flesh as a fan. In fact, that was like one of the things with Joe. We're circling around to your original comment, actually. So when Roadrunner, you know, when Joe expressed interest in working with me, Roadrunner was like, hey, that's a great idea. Like, we love Josh. Like, let's do that. And I don't think Joe necessarily ever understood that I was a fan and I bought The Way of All Flesh as a fan, you know? So I think there's always this sense of, is he on the team label? Is he on team us? You know what I mean? And I'm like, and you know, I'm constantly like, I'm on team of you. Like, I was cranking your record. Honestly, Randy is the one that introduced me to Gojira because he did Adoration for None, right? Yep. And I remember we were working on one of their records and he was like, check this out. And like, we're driving around, like listening to that. I was like, this is super sick. And I went out and bought the record, you know, like I bought The Way of All Flesh as a fan, you know? And so when you talk about like suggesting things to the bands, like to me, with them in particular and plenty of other bands, when I'm suggesting something, it's not because I'm like, hey, this is what the man or someone thinks that you should do. It's me being like, yo, I think it'd be sick if, because I'm a fan and that's what I want to hear, you know, like that's, and I do think, you know, every producer has different skill sets and things that they're good at. And I think the thing that I am good at is honing in on what things a band is known for and trying to kind of capitalize on that. Be like, yo, if you don't do X, Y, Z, you're kind of bum your fans out because I'm a fan and I want to hear that, you know, like that's really my approach, especially when we're making a metal record. It's not, you know, you don't go in trying to be like, how do we write the radio single? And if you do, you're really just shooting yourself in the foot. Like
and a lot of times you can tell when a band forces a radio, whether it's metal or anything, you can tell when somebody's forcing that radio single, like,
sure.
Geez.
And, you know, like Trivium had like a huge hit with Until the World Goes Cold, right? That's just like a song that they wrote. Yep. They just wrote a song and it was a massive hit. You know, it's like top 10 at like Active Rock or something. And then, but their kind of bread and butter is touring, right? They're like a rock band. They're a touring band. They're not like a radio band. And they had a huge radio hit. But when I got in with them and we were doing the Sin in a Sentence, there was a blatant talk about like, hey, we are on zero quest to write another radio song. Like if it accidentally happens, that's fine, but it doesn't matter. You know, and if there's a song that's leaning that way, then maybe, you know, you chase it. But it was certainly not a priority, not by any means.
Right.
Well, as far as
anything you asked about,
as far as the producing thing that you mentioned, like every producer kind of has things they do well and whatever. And I mean, the first thing I noticed doing, you know, the first Gizmachi record with you, because we never had, their haircut. We had never like had, you know, we were very young. I mean, we've recorded stuff before, but it was like on our own and we'd have somebody record it. But as far as like somebody in there, and obviously Clown from Slipknot produced the record.
Yep.
You had a big say, you know, you rearranged one of the tunes, and I don't know if anybody's supposed to really know that, but now who really cares, right?
I don't even remember it, but
Well,
I believe it.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, I think the one thing that you do very well is I don't want to stroke your ego or anything else on your body, but it's the personality thing. And when you work with somebody, especially in that kind of, like intimate thing, like music, when you write music and you record it, it's a very intimate thing. Like this is your, self coming out through music, and the way you are, you were very easy to work with, very cool, the sense of humor thing. And that I think is the most important thing. Because if you're not comfortable working with somebody, if the personalities clash or whatever it is,
sure,
it's you're not going to be comfortable doing things in front of that person. So that was one of the things. Like I always felt comfortable, even if I was just trying something. I wasn't afraid to mess up or approach anything because it was always like a comfortable, fun environment, which I think is
kind of. You had to turn back to me.
What happened?
You have to turn back to me.
Oh yeah, did I have to do that?
Yeah, I actually remember that. He's like trying to work out a solo, and you're like, "Hold on."
Oh yeah.
I was like, I can still hear you. Like the speakers are right here. You're like, I don't know. I feel better. Like
that's right. That is right.
No, I mean that I every once in a while, like I do a lot of. Lately, I've done a bunch of stuff for Genelec and for I've spoken to some college classes and stuff before, and oftentimes the question is like, how do you make it in this business, right? And usually the first answer is, did I make it yet? Like, let me know. Like, do you ever make it? Like, we're in the perpetual state. I mean, that's music in general, right? Like, I always wonder, like, maybe some huge pop star somewhere, but I feel like everyone's always climbing, right? Like, because you raise the bar as you go, right? You just like, I remember one day before I had ever even set foot in like a big recording studio, I was like, man, if I ever had a gold record, like, that's it. There's like nothing else I want. And then like my first plaque was a platinum Little Kim record. And I was like, I mean, I mixed the song on that. It'd be sick if I had like a gold record for like my production. You know what I mean? Like all of a sudden, immediately I'm handed the one thing I said I ever wanted. And I'm already like, yeah, but it was for this. Like that's the music
That's
business.
probably the reason why you are at the level you are and still climbing, because you still have the hunger inside of you to want to beat what you just did and continue, which a lot of people, like you say, once they reach a certain level, the hunger goes away and it's kind of like, yeah, it's whatever,
And feed your kids. That's a big motivator too. For sure.
Yeah,
no, but I totally just lost my train of thought when we did that. What was I going to say? Hunger. Oh, I tell kids in classes a lot of times, what makes you make it in this business is not forgetting what you're saying in the middle of your statement. What the hell was I just going to say?
Well, Josh, while you think about that, we have a question.
It's being able to hang out in a room with someone for 8 hours and not drive them crazy. There we go. That's what I'm trying to say. That is a big part of making it in this business, is just not being a dick.
Yeah.
Right.
There you go. That's what I was trying to squeeze out there.
So Wayno has a question. Who wants to read that? I still get chills the second Another World starts. The riff is so great. The chugging during the verse and the production is just ridiculous. Kudos.
Well, Josh didn't produce Another World, but still, it's
I think I did.
pretty sweet. Regardless,
is that a song? Is that a song off of a record?
It's off of the last Gojira album, Fortitude. Yes.
Oh yeah. Well, Josh, let never mind.
I gotta check it out. I bet it's sick.
We actually have a question in the chat from Optimus Thrice, aka Jimmy Hatcher. Jimmy would like to know, Josh, what size bowl did you use for your haircut during the imbuing?
I knew it was the haircut was coming. During imbuing. I was on a number 2 comb back then.
Number 2.
He called him the monkey cut back then. You just do the whole
That's
thing.
Right.
The monkey cut, man. You do that, but I had a chin strap back then. And you just did the whole thing the same size. Like
That's awesome. So you're I know next week the next Trivium album comes out.
Yep.
So one thing, so we're going from Gojira to Trivium. Trivium has a ton of guitar tunings. Like they use 7-string. they'll use a 7-string that's tuned to like F sharp. Then they'll have another song that's in B. Then they'll use a 6-string that's in like drop C. What are they doing? Like, do you ever just be like, yo, let's just calm down here? Like,
There's 4 tunings. There's basically 4 tunings. They use they do the 7 strings and the 6 strings, and then in standard and drop on each one.
Right.
And honestly, that's them, man. Like, I don't even get involved too much. And Trivium is one of those bands, like they know what they want, and they're pretty like, I mean, honestly, they're like the hardest working band in heavy metal. Like, they really are. They're just, I wouldn't be surprised if they have a half a record written already. Like, you know, they don't really ever stop. I mean, haven't we? It's funny. Like, you're right that my 3rd Trivium record is about to come out, and it feels like I did Descent and Descendants like 6 months ago. Like, they're just on a constant. They're just a hardworking band, you know, and they're very driven, very hungry, and always trying to outdo themselves and come up with a way to step things up. And the tunings and stuff, it's all I don't get super involved in that, you know. The only time ever I have gotten involved, like sometimes with a band, if some band's playing, if they have a couple different tunings, I don't think this has happened on Trivium, but if a band has a lot of tunings and then like one of the songs that happens to be particular fast, they're trying to do it on like the 8 string. I'm like, I mean, can we just, there's no reason to just sludge around here. Like, can't we just go up to something with a little more tension and actually like be able to hear the riff? Yeah.
And I've done that. Now, as far as the 4 different tunings in one band, does it matter? Like, is one guy that writes certain songs in 2 tunings and somebody, or are they all kind of writing anything and anything?
Those guys all write, and they all write anything and anything. Okay. In fact, this new record that's about to come out they actually wrote completely as a band, like in a jam room.
Wow.
Like normally, you know, nowadays people write stuff in computers and send files and show each other their riffs. And this record, they all got in a room and jammed. They said it's the most collaborative record they've had since, I don't know, Ascendancy or something, you know, like they just got in a room and jammed.
Now, what happened during the recording process? Were they in kind of the same idea, like kind of playing it together, or? No, I mean, they do their parts separate, but we pre-pro it all together. Usually we set up, it's probably, I think some footage of this floating around somewhere, but usually we set up a V drum kit, and it's actually wild too, because they rehearse so well. By the time I get to them, they know their songs inside and out, which is cool. Because if I have like an arrangement idea or something, you know, sometimes if I want to do like something like that with a band, I'm forced into doing it with their demo, right? But they're so rehearsed by the time I get to them, when I say like, hey, can you just try coming out of this part into this part and maybe move this here? They're like, oh, okay, and they just like instantly jam it on the spot. It makes life like, you know, really easy on my end, because we can make a massive amount of progress in a very short amount of time. You know, like in 4 days of pre-production, we could rearrange like 8 or 9 songs sometimes. It's just they're quick, you know. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, for pre-production, we usually set up like a V drum kit. I actually do similar thing with Lamb of God, and I've done it with other bands in the past. I was trying to think if we did it on Kill or Be Killed, but that's a whole nother animal. But well, yeah, we'll have the band jam it, and while we're doing it, recording the MIDI from the V drums, and you know, I'll go in and look at the tempos afterwards, and we'll map the tempos based on the way that they played it live, you know. And once I map the tempos, they'll kind of play to that click again and be like, yeah, this feels good. And then they'll cut the guitars to those MIDI drums, and then we'll go through the whole record until we're done. And then once we're finished that, we go in and cut drums and replace the MIDI drums. Wow. See?
That's it.
You mentioned, you know, one of those bands that come in knowing their material inside and out.
Yeah.
I think that's I don't want to say an extremely rare thing nowadays, but
it is nowadays.
It is, right? It's because,
yeah.
I mean, back in the day, those bands, they had, you know, when they were recording all the tape and everything, you had to, for the most part, know your material inside and out, especially if you're playing together as a band in a room.
Yeah.
But now it's so easy to just cut stuff together, learn stuff. It's just like
There's this
okay,
constant
all right,
state of
these 2 notes right here. Let's just punch those in, and you can fix so much.
I mean, I'm telling you, when you hear the new Trivium record, I would be lying if I said if there's 5 punches in the rhythm guitar track, I'd be surprised.
Wow.
Wow.
That's impressive.
I'm serious. Like, and bass, there might be 2 punches on the bass track. Like Paula just rips through it, all of them, like they're just solid players. And they are crazy rehearsed to the point where almost sometimes it's a problem, like, hey, can we change this? They're like, we love it. And I'm like, yeah, I know you love it, but like,
dude, we've played it 500 times. Like, you want us to change it?
Yeah, there is a little bit of that goes on. But now we have such a good working relationship that where it used to be like, nah, this is how it goes. Now there's a little more of like, hold on, let's listen to this guy for a second. And if it's worked out in the past, hold on. Like,
I still remember the first time you uttered those words. If it's now I can't remember. No, I uttered the same thing. If it what was it? If it's what the hell? Your words of wisdom. I know this is like 16 years ago.
Better is my normal word of wisdom on this. I'm like, if it's better, it's gonna be better.
Yeah, it's basically that same type of thing. if it's better, it's better. Like, let's go through all the different options that everybody has, and whatever one's better, it's better. Just because you wrote something or this person, it's like put the egos aside, and if it's better, it's better.
And I used to feel like I shouldn't have to sell you on it too hard. Like, generally, I kind of feel like if I find, it's a little bit of, and I've gotten better at this as I've gotten older, that's for sure. But if I feel like I'm really selling something to the band, then I don't want that. Like, I don't want to, like, it's just not worth it in the end, because they're going to feel all garbage about it. And if I have to be like a salesman to pitch it doesn't feel natural, and it's okay. We'll find another way. It doesn't mean that, like, I've definitely been in a situation where I'm like, I don't really like this, and I think that we should do this to fix it. But this is not the only solution. Like, although I think we should do this, if you don't like that, that's fine. But can you at least understand that we don't like this, and this is why? So help me come up with a solution, sometimes you find out you end up writing with Lamb of God in particular, that very often leads to like a whole new song. Like, we'll be like, hey, this is dragging right here. Like, what do we got to do? We replace that riff. And then we're like, now this riff is sick. But honestly, the riff in front of it now just doesn't seem nearly as cool. We got the dopest pre-chorus in the world and nothing around it. Like, let's write a new verse. And but at least you open the creative floodgates. And the next thing you know, like, I mean, that's like the fun about doing this job, right? Like, it's just being creative and throwing ideas out, and then like listening back at the end, just like, this is sick. I love it. Like, that's the whole reason we do this.
Right. So with Trivium, with this new album, The Corded Dragon.
Remember this one?
That's a good one.
If it's going to focus.
It'll focus. There it is. Look at that hair.
I know. Look at my sideburn.
I got a buff.
A coiffed.
That's what it is. Look like a Q-tip.
So Josh, with the new album for Trivium, The Court of the Dragon, when they came to you like, all right, it's time to record, how long does it take for them to lay everything down, be done recording? And then when they came to you with this album, did you know, like, let's say, when do you know, like, the Court of the Dragon was going to be the first single or the first release, or like, how does that process go? Do they talk to you about it? Do they ever get your opinion? Like, what do you think about this?
I don't remember on this record. I remember on the Sin and the Sentence very distinctly when we decided what the first track was on the record. That record, it's hard for me to say on the new one. I just can't answer it. I don't know. I think, they kind of, I guess we all kind of knew as we were working on it, like, this is probably going to be the first song on the record. It kind of is a good representation of what we're trying to do. Mm-hmm. I think I'm going to say they probably had that pretty planned out from the drop.
Usually bands know, like, the opening and usually the opening and closing track on an album. Usually, like, the band, like, oh yeah, this is the album opener, bro.
On this new record, actually, I think there's 2 tracks that could have been the closer. There's a lot of kind of epic songs on this record,
Mhm.
on the new one coming out. I think it's funny because I've been doing the Atmos mixes of them right now. So like as I'm doing it, I'm like, man, this could have easily been the last track on the record. There's like some pretty theatrical, cool things
Epic
going on.
stuff.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll just tell you on the Sin of the Sentence, I remember distinctly after we cut the vocals on the Sin of the Sentence, and we had cut them on a couple, but we finished that one. Like just listening back to it, we got giddy. You know what I mean? Like we're listening back to it, we're both like, like this is sick. And then we played it for there was a photographer that just happened to be there, and we're like, yo, check this out. And it was like we were in the vocal booth, and I'd kind of made a little makeshift vocal booth at Hybrid Studios. So all we had to listen to it on was me and Matt were listening to headphones, just looking at each other like, you know. And we watched the photographer come in and put the headphones on and listen to it, and he's got headphones on, and we're just standing around him while he's listening to it, and we watched him go. We're like, yeah, dude, that's gonna be the first track.
That's a great album. I'd say the wretchedness inside. That's my jam. That song's fun to play too. That's an F drop, like F sharp.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
You know,
want to go down memory lane, Josh?
This is a great photo. I got this one too.
I always love this one.
Yeah, I do too.
It's not going to.
The best thing about this photo is my Homestar Runner T-shirt.
That's right. Yep.
That dates it better than anything. Come on, it's got to focus.
God, and that's of course me next to you because you know.
And Clown covering his face.
Yep. When nobody could know who.
Because back in the day.
Yeah.
Nobody could know what they looked like yet, and then this one. Well, balls is track. Look at Mike, man.
Holy
Mike,
crap.
look, if you're watching, look how tiny your head was back then.
Jesus.
Josh was like, you want me to do what? And then this one. Remember that?
That's at a show, right?
Yep. That was when we played at the, the Meadowlands or whatever it was.
Josh, you look like you're in the band Reveille over here.
Which band?
Reveille. Like that new metal, late 90s, early 2000s.
I don't even remember that band.
Yeah, exactly.
What is going on over there?
I had to bust open another pumpkin beer.
Popping a
Rosemary's Baby. That's a beer called Rosemary's Baby.
Absolutely, and it's rum barreled aged. It's awesome.
Oh,
it's no joke. Good stuff.
All right, so Brian, I know you have another question ready to go.
He's like, I used them all up.
No, I have a million. So when a band comes to you, not necessarily Trivium or Lamb of God, but does anyone let's just say Trivium, did they ever come in and just be like, hey, on Wrath, the drums sounded filthy. We want our drums, our tone to be like that. Does anyone ever come to you like that or ask for something that you've done previously that they want to kind of emulate?
No, not really. I think, well, not specifically. I think most of the bands I work with, and I feel fortunate to this, is we're not usually chasing anybody else. In fact, I was just talking to Mark Morton about this yesterday. I'll do that. We were talking about how when we make a Lamb record, and same with Trivium, we never play any other band. We're never like, hold on, let's listen to this. Like, it never happens. Never reference anybody else's stuff in the mix or in the recording process. It's just like, and honestly, it ends up coming out like it's completely its own animal because of that, you know? And
Sure.
Truth be told, for better, for worse, like maybe you got a record that sounds sick out of it, and maybe it's sonically not the best record that you've ever done. But I will say in today's day and age, having a unique record is probably worth more than any of that. Because, I mean, there are some great bands right now that I hear on the radio, and then the next one comes on, and I am like, whoa. Outside of the vocalist, this is the same track. And I try really hard to not have my records be like that. I try really hard to make sure that my Parkway Drive mix doesn't sound like my Lamb of God record, doesn't sound like my Gojira album, doesn't sound, that's by design, and I'm sure there are people that love the sound of one and hate the sound of the other, or vice versa. And I'm at peace with that, because one thing's for sure, you're not going to mistake it for anything else on the radio.
You know what? Because this was going to be one of my things I wanted to bring up eventually tonight, because the beauty of, and you mentioned the whole sonic thing, right? Something might not be sonically perfect, but if it sounds unique, like, I think that's achieving something, especially in this day and age. You go back to the 80s, for instance, metal and early 90s even. Bands kind of sounded like themselves. I mean, every album would obviously sound different sonically, but they still kind of had the sound that made them sound like themselves.
Yep.
And the great thing too, you put on half a second of some of those classic metal albums. All you have to hear is a half a second of that guitar tone or drum, whatever.
Yeah.
You know what album it's from.
Yep.
And nowadays, I don't want to, make you feel uncomfortable, but I hate calling out bands, but there's this one band right now that's actually doing pretty goddamn well.
I mean, a lot of them do really well.
Really well. And I tried listening to them, and I'm just like, it doesn't sound like a real band playing anything. Like, the drums are so fake. They're 100% on the grid, like locked in. I don't even think a drummer played them, which I bet money they didn't. The guitar tone is just some generic guitar tone that everyone's using nowadays. The singer, she's got a good voice. I'm sure you guys know who I'm talking about now.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And it's just, to me, it's like, I just don't understand it. I don't get it. Is the listener kind of getting
No, I think there's a huge market for that. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's like metal's become pop like that, right? Like, that's kind of how pop records are very often. You could put because basically you have a handful of producers making pop tracks, and they're all using the same synths or similar things. Like a couple of years ago, there was this patch on Massive, right? Like I don't know if you know the synths, but there's like patch on Massive that like you heard it on every single pop song, like the distorted keyboard, like I forgot the name of the patch now, but everybody knows what I'm talking about that hears it. Like, and metal has kind of become similar, right? Like, we're all using like presets and everything, because honestly, what's one of the biggest differences you used to hear on some of the guitar tones? Let's go to a guitar tone that's like arguably terrible.
Deftones' first album, Adrenaline.
Great example.
Mm-hmm.
Pantera, right? Like the early Pantera records, like that's some like, I mean, that mic could not be more in the center of the cone. Like, it is super abrasive.
Yep.
You didn't care because the bands are great, right? And Deftones is a great example too. In fact, Deftones, I spent forever when I was a kid trying to like, what is going on with these guitars? Like, what is it? Is it through a wah pedal? Like, with it fixed? I didn't know.
Yeah,
what
like
it
in
was.
one spot. Like, was it?
That's what I thought. Like, I couldn't
cock that. Yeah.
Like, it's something like that, or it's mono, or I don't know, or the way it was mic'd was so off axis that it's got this weird thing going on. But like, I tell you what, you hear like 2 seconds of either of those records, you know exactly what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying I'm chasing bad tones when I make records. Hopefully I'm not, and hopefully my records don't sound like ham. But what I am doing, and I'm not against plugins by any means. Like Parkway Drive was, I didn't even know it when I mixed it. Honestly, it's the best. Whatever they used was the best emulator I've ever heard, because I didn't actually know it when I mixed it. Usually when I'm mixing a record that has an emulator, I find there's some weird thing going on the high end. And I'm like, how do I dip this, like notch this? Like something's always annoying me. And I remember Parkway Drive specifically, like, right out of gate, I kind of EQ'd the guitars, and I was like, I actually started that record mixing the guitars. It was kind of an odd thing. Normally I start with the drums. And for whatever reason, I was like, started with the guitars and the bass. And I remember when I finished the mix, or finished the record rather, I got interviewed for like some production magazine. I don't remember what it was. And then when the article came out, I read it because I was curious, what if I said anything stupid? And they interviewed me, the guy that mixed it. They also interviewed the guys that recorded it. And when I was reading about the recording, and they were like, yeah, and we tried out a bunch of amps, and we just ended up using the Kemper preset XYZ. And I was like, what? Like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, I mixed that. I had that soloed. Like, I didn't know. Like, hey, okay, I can no longer officially say that like the plugins won't cut it, because that's definitely cutting it, and they sound great. But flip side of that, a lot of the times I don't like them, and I find if I'm mixing a record, I have a bunch of amps beside me in my studio with a cabinet always mic'd up. It's like nothing for me to reamp. It's quick, almost as quick as it is for me to put a plugin on,
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, very often I'll have something that I like better, if not as good, but it's a sound that I can't even duplicate if I tip that mic even a centimeter, like I'll never get it back. I've even done that trying to reamp like the same thing with the same guitar with the same, because I've done 2 records for like the same band, and I'm like, well, this is what it used last time. Hell, it's still got the pencil mark on the knobs from the last one, and I put the same thing up, but then as soon as I go to put the mic in front of the cab and I'm like listening in front, I'm like, wow, it doesn't sound anything like their last record. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe the pickups are different, which are like a way bigger, like make a way bigger difference than you might realize, Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
But it kind of bugs me, man. It really does, like how.
Oh, that's what I was trying to say. It's the mic placement that is no longer, because that art form is like removed. And honestly, it's the nuances of that I think have made all the records sound the same, because like those decisions in the studio forced you into something, right? Like even if you wished it had been a half a centimeter this way or this way, at some point you committed. Yeah, you committed and you rolled with it, and even if you reamped, you were back to having to commit. But like with the presets, it's like you pull it up, you're like, that's good, it's good. And if you're a producer in particular who's writing songs for bands or something like that, like you're probably going to pull the same one up every time, right? And you're probably going to use the same program drums that you always use. So if you got like one guy doing a bunch of records, people go to him for that sound, and that's awesome. Like I am certainly not knocking that the guys that work like that, because they're crushing it, they're doing a great job, and their record sounds sick. It's not denying it, but I do think it's making it kind of turn into like what I call producer metal, where you're hearing the production more than the band. Mm-hmm. Let's put a bunch of swoops in, and all this uplifters and sound effects and that, and then it definitely, I feel like once you start listening to the radio for a while, like, can we just get a band in here? And maybe that's just old guy talking. Like, can I hear a drum set that sounds like a drum set? Yeah.
Can I hear some human element to the stuff? And that, I think that's a huge lacking.
Or even something that's different. Give me like a 1980 Roland DMX snare drum. No one was complaining when Bruce Springsteen, whatever that snare drum was, going on in Born in the USA. Sound like a pile of
leaves on us.
Yeah, just like a ball of wet leaves, throwing them at a corrugated steel door.
So you're talking about guitar tone, and I know you've mixed, I believe, the last 2 Korn albums.
Yep.
And then everyone is a huge fan, obviously, of early Korn. Like that, obviously, Jay plays the 7-string because of Korn. I do. How is it working with, like, I know you must have been influenced by Korn. Like how, like when you're like, hey, Josh, can you work on mixing this? And I'm just like, oh, we're going Life is Peachy sound right now. Like,
I'll tell you what, Nick Raskulinecz produced the 2 Korn records that I mixed. Mm-hmm. And bless his heart, he got them to do. I don't even know if I'm allowed to tell the secret.
Nobody's watching. Don't worry about it.
It's all good.
I'll speak in code. I don't know. They have a thing that they refer to as tractor guitars. And it's because it just sounds like a tractor. That's the way that they describe the guitar tone. And it's a particular pedal going through a thing that's doing a thing. And it doesn't sound particularly good. But I will tell you, undeniably, as soon as you put up, so when I received like what was the first one that I did? What is the first record? What's the name of that album?
Serenity of Suffering.
Serenity of Suffering. The first song I mixed on that was the single, whatever the first song that they put out was.
Oh no, Rotting in Vain.
Yep, that was the first one. And I remember I did a test mix for that record. And I remember listening to like the guitars, and there was 4 sets of guitars, and 2 of them were very good sounding guitars. Actually, I should back this up. Actually, Fran from not Devil, what's the name of the band now? Light the Torch. Francesco, the guitar player. I had just worked with Devil, and Francesco and I were talking, I told him I was mixing Korn, and had I not run into him, I wouldn't have got the gig, because I pulled up the guitar sounds for the Korn record, and I was like, ugh, this is a mess. Like, it's just a mess. I got to be able to reamp something better than this, and I'm feeling like, because I know there's other guys doing tests, and I want it to sound great. And I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to reamp them. So I reamped the guitars. I don't even remember what I used, but it sounded great. I was like, this sounds sick. This is actually we're circling right back to what I was just talking about. And I get the guitar tone up, and I'm like, it sounds pretty good. And then they were playing a show downtown, and I went to see him, and I run into, talking to Fran outside, and I was like, yeah, I just did I just finished a mix for Korn. And he's like, cool. He's like, he's like, what do the guitars sound like? And I'm like, oh, honestly, I ended up reamping them. He's like, oh, what'd you use? And I told him, and he's like, oh, you can't do that. And I was like, what do you mean I can't do that? He's like, I mean, you got to use a Mesa or a rectifier or something. Like, it can't be that. And I was like, he's like, I mean, he's like, you're the one, I haven't even heard it. Like, I don't even know what I'm talking about. Like, I haven't heard your mix, but I'm sure it's great, And I was, but he got in my fucking head, man. I was like driving home that night, and I'm like, fuck, man, maybe he's right. Like, maybe it's not cool that I reamped these guitars. And I hadn't sent it yet. I didn't send it to anybody. It was one of those, I finished that night, and I was like, yeah, I'll listen to it on the way to and from the show. And if I like it in the morning, I'll send it.
That's a good hint for everybody, by the way. If you're a mix engineer and you think a mix is great at the end of the night, wait till the morning to listen to it before you send it.
Truth is, it usually sounds better in the morning. Like, mixes ferment with time away. They tend to. You're like, man, I was crazy last night. It sounds great. Even just a lunch break, I usually sounds better after lunch for whatever reason. But anyway, I'm driving home, and I was like, I can't do this. I got to go back. And so I go and I listen to the guitar tracks that are there. And there's the ones that sound kind of normal. And then there's the ones labeled Tractor. And they're just blown out, wild sounding. And I was like, I push those way up, and I take a listen to it, and I'm like, God, that sounds like Korn. I'm rolling with it. And I did the mix, and I was like, this is what I want Korn to sound like. If listen, I grew up, we're about the same age, right, Jay? Like, I nu metal was happening, you know? Well, you saw the photo of us, right? Like, nu metal was happening.
That was happening.
I don't know if I was wearing my Adidas snap pants in that particular photo, but like, probably not. They came off first thing in the studio. Yep. No, but I was like, this is what Korn is supposed to sound like, at least in my memory. Like, it was a more modern version. It's funny because afterwards I went back and listened to old Korn, and I was like, my record sounds nothing like old Korn, but it sounded like what my mind's eye thought, like, remembered Korn to sound like,
Mm-hmm.
And I got the gig, obviously. And Brian's comment, Head's comment when he first heard the mix, he's like, this like sounded like Korn to us. Like, we had a bunch of people do mixes, and like right away we were like, this sounds the way that we think Korn is supposed to sound like, the sloppy high end on the bass snapping around, and real stringy and just muddy mush guitars. Like,
well, I remember cool. when I heard when that album came out, I listened to it, and I think I texted you. I was like, dude, the low end on the new Korn album, like, holy shit, it was phenomenal. Like, that's the first thing that stuck out to me was like the low end was huge and tight, and just like
Yeah.
it didn't distort anything, it didn't muddy anything up. It was just like really, really good.
Yeah, we nailed the low end on that record. Actually, funny story about the low end in particular. Circle back to Gojira. When Joe and I were working on Gojira, he said, on L'Enfant Sauvage, he said, I just want the low end to sound like Korn. He's like, I want it to be like the low end to be like a big Korn record. So that was our conversation when we were doing L'Enfant Sauvage. Fast forward 6 years later or whatever it was, and I'm mixing Korn. And they're like, we just want that low end from like L'Enfant Sauvage. And I'm like, wow. This
Wow,
really
are you
like,
serious?
that's true story.
Wow,
They literally referenced each other's records.
that's sick. There's a million things I have to say about this, but first thing, it's a little story about you, Josh. So Ollie Herbert, from All the Remains, was my guitar teacher. So when Serenity of Suffering came out, I was learning how to play Insane, the first song off that album, just because the intro chord. I'm sorry. I'll go.
I'll be right back.
All right. So the intro chord was kind of weird, and I couldn't figure it out initially. I was just doing it on my own. So Ollie, we played it. And he's like, "Wow, this sounds great." And then we knew it was you. And he's like, "Yeah, Josh worked with us, and said you were a great guy and loved working with you." And that was pretty cool. So that's my Ollie story to you. But the last two Korn albums are sick. They sound really good. And thank you for bringing Korn that I know and love back. So thank you so much. Tell Head that too, and I love him very much, like Mark Morton. So when you were also about Mark Morton, what you were saying earlier, you produced a solo album, and I believe the last vocal recording of Chester Bennington is that album.
It is.
Did you get to work with Chester, or was it sent to you? Like, how did that?
Oh no, yeah. There's like plenty of photos that floating around that are very embarrassing to me, because they were. I don't even know who posted them. It was just supposed to be for us. That's neither here nor there. But yeah, like what a privilege. Like what a privilege that was. That's the best way I can describe it. And I don't know if you know, Paulo and Alex played the drums and bass on that song.
Yep.
Yeah, Cross Off was the song.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can tell you a lot about that song because that's like some really cool stuff. So, first of all, Chester was like, God, what a great guy, man. Like, I remember being like, I texted with him a lot after that session because he was really excited about it. I hope, I don't think I'm saying anything that he wouldn't be happy to have me say, but he was very good friends with a friend of mine. Chester was. And I'd actually met Chester before when they were mixing Hybrid Theory, because they mixed Hybrid Theory at Soundtrack in New York. And I was like an intern assistant engineer back then at Soundtrack.
Isn't that where you mixed our record?
Yeah. And
wait a second. So that album was mixed the same place, same room?
Dude, not the same room.
Okay.
But I mean, Soundtrack Studios, like Andy Wallace was mixing out of there. So if you want to talk about hits, like he was turning them out, I mean, nonstop out of Soundtrack, like Puddle of Mud, Disturbed, Stained, Linkin Park,
wow.
Stained, It's Been a While, like just Limp Bizkit, like, I mean, all of the, like just massive hits. Seven Dust, Puddle of Mud, I think I already said it. I don't know. It was like anything that was huge in that time period. Do you do Nirvana Nevermind there? Maybe not. I don't think he did. I think he did. I don't think he did that one there. But I mean, the man was like turning out just record after record at that point at Soundtrack. In fact, so the Linkin Park, they were like nobody, right? Before Hybrid Theory, they were just a bunch of kids, and they were about my age, and I was literally like sitting in the lounge just shooting the shit with them, gabbing, like talking, because I was in a band back then too, and we're just talking about playing in bands and like random stuff like that. And it was like a super cool hang. And then literally when they did the record after that, there was like a security guard with him and nobody was talking to him. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying they didn't want it. I'm just saying you weren't getting near them. Like it was like totally different scenario. So my manager is actually very good friends, or was very good friends with Chester, super close. And Mark and I wrote the song. Mark was trying to get sober then, and he is sober now. But it was around, he was struggling at the time. Like that was like he knew he needed to get sober, and he was kind of working on it. And if he hadn't tweeted about this a lot, I wouldn't talk about it, but he's very open about his sobriety. Anyway, he wrote the song Cross Off. He was like, is this what we do now when we're like sober guys? We just cross off days and count days. Like, is that the new thing? Like this sucks, And we demoed out the vocals. We had actually cut a real hurting version of either me or Mark, or the combination of the two of us singing the song. But we thought the song was cool, and I sent it to Renee. He's my manager. And Renee, like, I get a phone call from Renee, and I pick up the phone, and he's like, "Yo," he's like, "You're on speaker. I'm here with Chester. He fucking loves the song." I'm like, "Chester who?" He's like, "Fucking Chester Bennington, man." And like Chester is just like, "Yo, this song is sick, man." And I'm like, "Thanks." Like, wow. And he's like, "Yo, I want to get on this track." I'm like, "You can get on this track. Like, you will get no static from me about that." Like, he's like, "Let's do it." And Renee's like, "I'm linking you guys in the text right now." And I'm like, "Okay." And you don't know Renee, but that's a very Renee thing to do, is just like call on speakerphone and like have someone.
At least he told you you were on speaker.
Yeah.
You got.
He doesn't usually, actually.
Okay. No, never mind.
But usually it's a FaceTime. It's like, "Hey, what's up, man? I'm here with Beyonce. Say what's up to Beyonce." You're like, "It's me and Jay-Z we're talking." No. Say. Anyway, I don't even remember what I was saying with that. Oh, so, I stored his number. I stored his number in my phone, and I'm like, see if I actually hear from this motherfucker. Like, no way. And like the next day, I was actually working on Sons of Texas's record. I remember I was sitting with them and we're tracking guitars, and I look over on my phone and it comes up Chester, and I'm like, no way. Like, holy smokes. Run outside, and he's like, "Dude, like, I really, I like this song. Like, can we do it?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." Like, let's Mark, I actually told Mark. He's like super stoked, like we linked Mark in the text, and like, let's get our people to work it out. And then that was like a whole nother thing. So, a rock star of that caliber, like his people have something to say about it. And there's always like, the label has to approve it because he's an artist with this label. You can't just, it's, they don't want competing things out there with their own artists. It's tricky. And he just had a record coming out. Right. But I think that's the motivation, right? So they had just released a record that was like really poppy. And, I think that was bugging Chester, that because he was catching a lot of backlash for it. And all of a sudden, like the guitar player from Lamb of God writes like this kind of heavy tune. And I think for him personally, he just wanted to stick a middle finger in the air to everybody and be like, I can fucking still rip if I want to rip, that was definitely the vibe that I got from Chester. And we book his day in the studio. We come in and like, I mean, listen, I'm a gabber. But like Chester, he comes in, he just starts talking, asking questions. We're like sharing life stories, like him, me, and Mark. And we're just like, hours go by and we haven't done anything, to the point where I'm like, God, we only got one day. Like, we're actually gonna fucking work, but I'm stoked, too, because we're having such a great hang. And then he even says in the middle of it, he's like, I know we got stuff to do. He's like, but we're making art, and I just love like getting to know the people that I'm creating with and stuff like that. And I'm like, no, dude, this is fucking sick, man. He's like, let's go get lunch. And I'm like, all right, so let's order, I mean, we were there hours before we even talked about the song. And then, when we finally get into doing the song, he's like, this spoke to me like right away. He's like, he's like, and I hope you don't mind, like you guys, we didn't have a bridge, he's like, I wrote an idea for the bridge. I'd like to rap it. And I remember being like, I don't know about that, but like, okay, you know, let's see what you got.
Mhm.
And he's like, and I'd like, he's like, I have an idea for the pre-chorus too. If, you know, we're like, yeah, we want this to be your thing. And it's interesting. If you listen, you can almost tell the lyrical difference because whether it's written in the first person or in the third person, I think like it changes, and you can tell the differences in lyrics based on that. But we actually thought it was cool that it did that. But anyway, sweetheart of a guy, literally told us right there. You know, it's hard to explain the story without like. I mean, it's super sad, and it's also like he kind of shared with us his struggles, but the way that he did it, it was very like, man, he's like super self-aware and like positive and like working on himself, and he was like, it was so like, it just really, it seemed such a great place, you know. And there was no release date for the song, right? There's no, and he'd text me all the time. Like I was like, and I even joked to my wife, I was like, yo, I think me and Chester are boys now, man. Like, I like text me all the time. This is super cool. And he's like, I fucking want to hear that song. Like, where you at? And I was like, I mean, I sent him a rough mix of it, you know? And, you know, I was like, I'm making it. And I was making a Trivium record at the time. And I was like, I just haven't had time. Like, you know, there's no rush. It's Mark Morton's solo record. Like he's in Lamb of God and I'm making a Trivium record. And like, you know, like this thing it's a side thing. It's not important, you know, it's important because it's cool, but it's not important as far as there's no label that was waiting for it, you know? And then I finished Trivium and I still had to get drums on it. And Alex is fucking great. And I already had this kit mic'd up and like, I played the song for Paulo and Alex. And I was like, and, you know, and then I was like, if you guys want me, I could really use like you guys' flavor on this, you know, if you're interested. And they're like, fuck yeah, let's do it, you know, because they're Trivium and they're done their record a week in advance. They're ahead of schedule anyway. So they came in one morning.
Imagine ahead of schedule in the studio.
The only band ever that's ahead of schedule.
Man.
Anyway, they hammered out Alex hammered out the drums. There's a great video online that is Alex's wife took of him like going through the tracking of it. And Paul hammered out the bass on it super quick. And then I finished Trivium, and it's like a month or so later now, maybe not even. And I was like, you know what? I got to finish this cross-off thing, man. Like he's texting me like nonstop about it. And I pull it up and I start comping his vocals, you know, like, cause I had given him a rough mix, but I hadn't really gone through what I had and stuff. I start comping the vocals, and literally while I was comping his vocals, Paulo texts me like the link, and I just was like, no way, dude. Like most tragic thing ever. Not to get off on a sad note, but it was like a privilege to work with that guy. It was a privilege to work with that guy. He was absolutely amazing, and the song is super sick, and it is like a magical thing that I got to be part of.
Yeah,
you got more than you wanted out of that one, that's for sure.
No, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. I remember reading a year or two ago, but Chester really wanted to go more into metal, harder stuff. So what you were saying was kind of what I was reading, that's what he wanted to do. That's kind of what he wanted to focus on after that Linkin Park album came out. So pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it was super cool. I'm like Mark and I have talked about it. Like it's just a privilege to be part of it.
Wow. I don't even know where to go from that. That was an awesome story.
Yeah, where do we go after that? Actually, and I should shout out Jake from Oni actually wrote a little bit of the vocals too. I neglected to mention it was the three of us that put that track together and made it all happen. But it was, yeah, great experience, super great experience. And honestly, like it was cool, like listening to him like, God, bye, just ripping it in the vocal booth. It was like, God damn, man, it's that dude. And I kind of get that way with a lot of singers that I work with. Like, it doesn't matter how many Lamb of God's record I've done. Like once like Randy gets to do the vocals, when I hear like the first, like, he's like, all right, let's give this a shot. And I'm like, yeah, that was Lamb of God. This is sick.
With Lamb of God, Randy, his voice to me live sounds spot on to the album. Like his voice doesn't change much. Is that true?
Particularly right now. I don't know if you've seen any footage of this metal tour of the year that's been going on yet. I think it ended yesterday, but all the bands sound sick. And I couldn't help but notice that Randy in particular sounds as good or better than he ever has. Like they are absolutely crushing it out there right now. All the bands are. Yeah, he's got a unique instrument that he sure knows how to use.
He's amazing. So my question now, my Randy Blythe question is on
Blythe.
Blythe. Thank you.
TH, silent.
Thank you.
Oh, I didn't know that until now. We did.
Most people don't. That's why I shared it.
Like, we did some touring with those guys. I had no idea.
Off of Sturm.
Just call him David the whole time anyway, right?
Well, the song Overlord that he sings. Was that you? Was that him? Was that like, how does that come
you're
about?
Hitting me all with all the heavy songs, dude. Overlord. God, you know what that song's about? He did that because, and I'm going to have to paraphrase this one, but we didn't come here to be heavy, but this is heavy, dude. Like he had a fan that was dying of cancer and he wrote that song. He asked that guy when we were making that record, because it was one of those things like the guy didn't have a lot of days left, and Randy doesn't let anybody in the studio when he records. It's usually just me and him, sometimes Mark, but generally it's just me and Randy in the studio. And he had met this guy on tour as a fan, gave him a t-shirt or whatnot, and took a photo with him. Someone from the guy was clearly ill back when he had met him. And someone in his family reached out to Randy somehow and got a hold of him. And Randy was like FaceTimed with him while we were tracking and let him like be in the studio while we were tracking. It was like, and it's kind of like just a one last great experience for this guy who didn't have a lot of time left. And then Randy asked him if he had anything that he wanted to say. He's like, because I can give you words that can live forever.
Wow.
And, he had like a conversation. I was not in the room when that particular conversation happened. And, Randy drew inspiration from that and he decided he wanted to do Overlord. And so it's released and it didn't fit on the record, right? Oh, wait, no, I'm confusing Overlord with the Duke.
The Duke, right?
I'm very sorry. I gave you the heavy story for nothing. I'm talking about the Duke.
No, but the heavy story's good. It's good.
But that was the Duke. I'm sorry. Completely fucked up because he sang both those songs for the same record. Overlord, however, kind of fit on the Lamb of God record because it kind of did the Vigil thing where like at the end, it kind of rips and goes off into like the heavy bit.
Yep.
So the Duke had like this super heavy meaning behind it, but it just didn't necessarily fit on the record. We didn't feel like it had to play. We didn't feel like we wanted two songs with Randy crooning on it. Like it just, that's not, we know the audience we're creating for. And, I think those things are Randy's voice, he can sing and he's got it more, he's getting better all the time. Like one of the, also with Randy's lifestyle changes throughout the years, he's just become a better musician. He really has. Like I've watched Randy just, you wouldn't expect anyone to grow so much so late in their career, but he's just continually gotten better. And, so I think sometimes for him, it's like, dude, I've made like 12 albums. Like maybe I want to try to sing, and I don't know. I honestly, I don't think we received the backlash I expected from the fans for that. There was a little bit of, we're kind of waiting for it, but it didn't really happen, and they even did Overlord live. And, I'm not saying it was the crowd favorite. I don't think they're going to pull it out in the set all the time, but they, I think it was a hurdle they wanted to get over, which honestly allowed us to bridge the gap for Memento Mori, right? Where he sings the whole intro of that, which was 100% Randy. He came in like, yo, I got an idea. And he was like, here's Memento Mori, like the intro. And that was the first song we demoed for the new record. And it is almost exactly as we demoed it. In fact, I think half the vocals on that song are from the demo.
That's awesome.
Well, as far as Randy's vocals go, I will say, and again, I don't know if it's you, him, both, but the first record you did with those guys was Wrath. And I mean, instantly I noticed, first song on the album, I was like, wow, Randy definitely took a jump in his, what he's doing vocally. Like he was doing different, a little more different things than just straight out, blasting. Now I know as a producer, you obviously want to make musicians and singers and stuff like that kind of reach, go as high as they can with their potential and get stuff out of them that they normally don't know is there.
Yeah. I mean, it's a delicate balance, right? You can't push them so far that they can't pull it off live, or, I don't want to, you know what I mean? I don't want to do anything that they're not going to be able to swing. But at the same time, yeah, you want to grow as an artist, right? And that in part of your job feels like how do I make these guys step it up for the last record, So, you kind of flirt that level of what you think you can push a guy to do. But I think a lot of times, like it says the producer pushes, but I think the bands push themselves. I think it's that thing that we're always talking about. Like we're always trying to raise the bar and be a little bit better. And I think it's a combination of band pushing themselves and, me helping them get to where they're trying to push themselves to,
But in metal, I mean, you kind of touched on it before. There's a very fine line that if you go over, especially adding melody, especially in vocals.
Right. Which is why the Duke didn't go on the record, right? They released it as a single because of the story in particular and like how heavy the story was. Like Randy was like, yo, I want this to come out. Like, and he's like, if we get crucified for it, so be it. Like, I want this to come out, which, kudos to him as an artist. Like he was like, listen, this is my art and that's how it's going to go down. So, we found a way to release it. And I think I'm pretty sure they released the whole story with the Duke. Like if you bought the single, it kind of explained why it was there. With a B-side on it that nobody liked.
Well, it's a B-side, so it's it's
on that single.
It's forgivable. we got a super chat from Wayno. He says, Josh, the inhale by Randy at the rest before I'm the Resurrection Man is just as badass, if not more, than one of Hetfield's Go. It's so killer.
That's the best song on the last album. I love that song.
That song happened solely from we had songs for the whole record. Dude, I gotta get it too. Art has a video of the conversation. I didn't even know he was recording it, but he had a video of the conversation that became Resurrection Man. And it's a good moment for me as a producer to watch it because we had gone through a lot of songs for that last record. And particularly we're going over the songs and I'm talking about them. And I'm like, listen, if we're going to have 10 songs on the record and maybe we're going to do 2 B-sides because we're going to end up tanking it on 2 of them and they just won't come out as good as we want. So if we have 12, we have this. I'm like, but if you look at it, like, and I usually, when we're talking about a record, I like write the song titles with the tempos next to it too, to make sure that we're not making like a one-dimensional record, and or at least I'll be like up tempo.
Yeah, the first 5 songs are the same tempo. Like, guys, we got to flip.
Yeah, but very often we'll find like that we do that on a record. We're like, okay, these 2 songs are both just as good, but they kind of fill the same slot, like so. Maybe we just set one of these aside. It doesn't mean it's gone. It'll go on the next record. Whatever, it's fine. But and maybe we'll work on it between now and then, and it will elevate. But for right now, it's just as good as this one, except maybe this one. This one's a little bit better. Anyway, we're having this conversation about it, and I'm like, what we don't have is like a slow, like Broken Hands vigil, like some kind of grimy, heavy, slow song. Like there's always at least one of those on every Lamb record. I'm like, we don't really have that on this one. And then I like stepped out of the room and I come back like 20 minutes later and we're like, like it's all of a sudden I'm like, wait, the song's coming together, and they actually wrote that one as a band in the room. And then Randy came in like right away. He wasn't there for that. He's not usually when they're writing music. And he come in and he's like, I'm putting vocals on this one tonight. Like, he's like, he was feeling it right away. And yeah, it ended up being one of the big songs on the record. Like, who knew that was going to be it
Isn't that
crushes
weird how
live,
sometimes
too.
that can happen? I mean, you hear about it, like I think like a band like the Rolling Stones or something. I think Start Me Up or something was something that, and this was, I don't know if it's exactly true, but I've heard that was one of those songs like, hey, we need like one more song for this record. And all of a sudden, whether it's Keith Richards or whoever came up with just that little riff, and next thing you know, it's like one of the Rolling Stones' biggest songs ever. And it was just one of those moments where like, all right, we need one more song here. But it's crazy how sometimes something like that, I don't want to call it magic, but sometimes it is, man. Just,
It's funny. I was theorizing the other day. If anybody knows James Hetfield real well, maybe they can ask him for me. I was theorizing the other day. I wonder if he wrote What Nothing Else Matters, like while he was like talking on the phone or something and had one hand on a guitar. Like,
wait, so
I
you
don't know
the story then?
I've heard that. Is that a rumor? Is that real?
No, he said that multiple times. He was on the phone. He had the guitar in his lap. And with his one hand, he's hitting the four strings. He's like,
yeah, and he stumbled into one of the greatest songs ever written that was literally laid out for years in front of every guitar player ever that they never heard.
Yeah,
like how no one else stumbled into that song, but he heard the magic. Like, I mean, that song is brilliant.
It is.
That song is a brilliant piece of music. In fact, every time it comes on the radio or something, listen, I'm like, God damn, what a good piece of music. Like. It's just the way, isn't it like, it's like 2 minutes or something before vocals even come in.
Yeah, that whole intro is phenomenal.
But it doesn't drag, like you're engaged in it, like it moves, it constantly, like, the
vocal performance.
God, the whole thing, man. It's like, it's just a good piece of music. My dad, who does not like heavy music at all, which is funny because he's had literally bands in his basement for as long as he can remember. Between me and my brother. I was driving around with my dad one time and he was like, that came on and we're just sitting there quiet and as I'm driving, he's like, wow, this is a really good piece of music. And I was like, it is a good piece of music.
And that's Hetfield that plays that's I think the first song Metallica ever released where Kirk Hammett is nowhere on it. It's all
really?
Yeah, yep. Because James plays the guitar solo on it.
Interesting.
Which is you could tell. I don't want to bash Kirk on here, but there's the handful of solos that Hetfield has done throughout Metallica's catalog. They're so melodic and just they have like a lot of feeling to them. It's not just blazing because he's not that type of player.
Yeah,
but
I actually always like Corey's solos from Trivium too because I think he's like he always has like that cool balance of flash and melody. Which I think is what makes it great, right? Like you find yourself humming along with the solo, but in between they put on the chops where you're just like, whoa. Like I always feel like Corey does a great job of that. In fact, a lot of the Trivium, every time I've heard from the guys, because I'm never there when it happens, but a lot of like their big thrashy whoop ass songs have come from Corey trying to write a ballad. And then someone else would be like, yeah, that's sick. But what if we sped it up like a lot?
Yeah.
Well, Corey's verse leads are awesome.
Same thing. Like it's just super melodic, right? He's got a good ear for.
And I think a lot of the we talk about modern metal and stuff like that before, but I think everybody not everybody, but a lot of players nowadays they want to play 1 million notes a minute. And you think back to all the great players, you need something to hold on to. It's not just 1 million notes. Obviously, that's impressive. Wow, look what he can do. But like you said, when you can hum something and when a melody gets stuck in your head, and but obviously you sprinkle in the stuff that like you said, did you hear that part? But then you pull them right back in, and so there's a good balance there.
Yeah.
Of what like again, I want to play 1 million notes a second. I can't. But you just I don't know. You want to be able to hold somebody in.
There's a song on the last Lamb record called Roots. It's one with Chuck Billy on it.
Yeah, Chuck Billy, hell yeah.
And Mark, when we did the Burn the Priest record, Mark always does the solo on the Lamb stuff. And when we did the Burn the Priest record, we were covering. It's all covers, right? I don't know if you know that. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's like Honestly, it's one of the most fun things we've ever done. Like, we were laughing so hard. I think Randy cut all the vocals for it in like 3 days. Like, he's doing like 3 songs a day. And it's cool too, because like Randy does a great Bad Brains, you know, like it's like it allowed him to do stuff vocally that he doesn't really get to do in Lamb. I mean, dude, we did Jesus Built My Hot Rod, which is like the dumbest thing ever. But we were like laughing hysterically while we did the whole thing. We recreated all the samples from the beginning. It was like so much fun. Like we did the samples ourselves, right? Because we're not going to clear them or whatever. Anyway, so there's a solo in one of the covers. I can't remember which we were doing. Oh, I think it's the Bad Brain song, right? I'm trying to remember. Anyway, at the end, so Mark's like, oh shit, I need a guitar with a Floyd Rose, you know? And, you know, he goes fishing around. He comes out with a guitar with a Floyd Rose. And all of a sudden, I've made what? We just said it, like 8 records with these guys. And all of a sudden, Mark's holding Floyd Rose, and he's like, wow! Like, and I look at him like, what the fuck is going on? And the track stops, and Mark looks at me and he goes, I don't know. I learned to play guitar in the 80s. What do you expect? I'm like, I didn't even know you could do all this shit. And I was like, yo, next Lamb record, you fucking put a Floyd Rose, like you come to the studio with a guitar with a Floyd Rose. So on the new Lamb record, if you check out the song Roots, the one with Chuck Billy, it has one of my favorite guitar solos ever on it that Mark's done. And it's solely because he's holding a guitar with a Floyd Rose, and he's like doing the like
the fluttering,
the flutter and all that stuff. I was like, do it all, do all of it.
What kind of guitar was it?
Oddly enough, I think because he had to get one from Jackson because he didn't actually have a good one.
Oh, okay.
And I think they sent him Corey's model, the Trivium, because it was a flying V, and you know, and Corey loves the flying V, and Mark fucking hates it. He's like, these things are fucking stupid. I can't get it on my leg. Like, it's people love or hate that guitar, right? You know, like
there's no in between. There really is no in between.
No one's like, I'm okay with the Floyd Rose. I mean the V, but yeah. If you haven't, check out that particular solo, keeping in mind it's the only one with a, or at least that I know of. Maybe there's one on Ashes of the Wake or something.
They're too fun, man. It seems like a lot of players, you know, as they get older, you know, they stop playing the guitars with the Floyds, and I don't own a guitar without a some kind of floating or tremolo in general. They're just so much fun.
I think it's because, especially for like touring guitarists, like I think if they're not set up right.
If they're not set up right, they're a nightmare.
But I think like for guys that like tour a lot, like maybe they just don't want to deal with the upkeep of keeping it in. Although, you know, when they're set up right, the tuning's great on them. They're like maybe better than the fixed bridge, really, you know. Because if you think about it, an Evertune is basically just a Floyd, but individual strings, right? Because a Floyd, like when you strike a whole chord, it's gonna give and like not go as sharp as a fixed bridge is going to push sharp if you like strum it too hard, right?
Good point.
Which is the whole concept behind an Evertune. The only difference is instead of it being the entire thing on a spring, it's like individual strings.
Have you had any because I've heard this from a couple different people. I've never played a guitar with an Evertune or recorded a guitar with an Evertune. I've heard a couple people mention that they don't sound as good as, you know, whether it be a fixed bridge or just a regular trem.
I can't get behind that at all. I really can't.
Okay.
My best sounding guitar is my blue Les Paul. And it was my best sounding guitar before it had an Evertune in it. And it's my best sounding guitar now with an Evertune in it.
So it's not like you put an Evertune on there and you're like, whoa, what happened? What happened to this thing? It sounds...
No, I mean, I'm not going to say it's not going to change the tone of your guitar. It may or may not. But like, if you put a Floyd Rose in a guitar, you'd be like, okay, this might sound a little bit different. You know, I can't say that, but like you dial in your tone for the guitar you're playing, right? Like that's how I always look at it, because you can't plug the same guitar in the same amp and the same settings. Like you might want to adjust something here or there. You know, the pickups are different, whatever. I don't know. Yep. But the Evertunes, you know, they have pros and cons. They're another tool in the toolbox. Like that's how I feel about them. I'm not all in. I'm not all in. Like, I think to say like Evertunes suck and they're garbage is like a ridiculous statement. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure there are plenty of, actually in my own house, I think I have 3 Evertunes just in my house, and in my in my studio, I have hanging on the wall right now in my studio, I have an 8-string Evertune, a 7-string Evertune, a 6-string Evertune, and the Les Paul Evertune, not 6-string. So I have 4 of them, and one of them sounds like dog shit. Like
8-string?
The 7-string.
Oh,
This 8-string sounds great.
But it might just be the guitar, right?
That's what I'm saying. Like that 7-string sounds terrible no matter what's going on. I have yet, it's just a garbage guitar. Like I don't even know why I still have it. It isn't yet to make it on a record. Like every time I plug it in, I'm like, yep, that sounds as shitty as it did last time.
Yeah, and how often is somebody going to sit there and be like, you know, we need a shitty sounding guitar right now. Let's get that set on.
I want this to be like, no, not like transistor radio, just like, you know, not good. It would sound like obviously terrible. Like my first band, terrible. Anyway, but the other 3 that I have one of them's been on like more records than I could count, and some of my best sounding records. And then the 8-string in particular, it's a Halo guitar that sounds killer. A lot of times I think it's just the pickups in that guitar too, but that guitar sounds great, and I've heard it against a lot of 8-strings. And some very, I won't name names because I'm not trying to bash other guitars, but there's a very high-end boutique guitar company, and I had that particular guitar in the studio and one of those, and I thought the one that I had blew it away. The other one certainly didn't have an Evertune in it, but also in tune always sounds better than not in tune. You know, like in fact, I bought the record because I bought that guitar because I knew I was going to do an 8-string record, and I was like, what are they tuned to? Drop E. Oh hell no, dude! Like I'm buying an Evertune for this. Like
Drop E.
Yeah, the A string or the low string on the right. Drop E. Yeah, drop E.
Holy.
I mean, that's what an A string would normally be. F.
G sharp or F, right? Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, and then they drop it. So it's like drop E.
So no need for a bass player, right?
I mean, the bass plays in the same octave.
Yeah. Drop W sharp. Yeah, it's too low.
But I knew going into it, I was like, oh, this is going to be a fucking nightmare. Like, I'm not trying to like deal with like, and you can't play a chord.
No.
But you can on the Evertune.
Really?
Yes.
It sounds good.
It sounds fine. Because the reason you can't do it on an 8-string on a regular guitar is because it's so floppy, right?
Yeah.
But the Evertune, the way just the nature of it is, it's, you know, a normal guitar, you push it, it's going to be sharp, and then it's going to wiggle and it may be sharp or flat or whatever. But the Evertune is like, okay, it's holding this tension. So as you strum it sharp, it's going to like compensate and loosen, right? Because it's getting pulled and it's staying in tune. So no matter how hard you strike it or no matter how soft you strike it, it's going to be the same pitch. It's going to hold that tension, right? So as far as being able to strum a chord down there, you can, because they're not flopping around. They're like, I mean, it's incredible. Like, that's why I don't understand how people be like, these things fucking suck. I'm like, have you played one?
No, that's why I told you.
Played one that's set up right?
I led with that. I've never played one. I've never recorded one. So I literally have no idea. But maybe that's the thing. Maybe the person or people that I heard this from, and this isn't like personal, like people I know, but whatever, just maybe they weren't set up right.
No, we both got a friend that hates them.
Yeah, we do.
I've gone to battle with him about it. But I mean, I'm like, I just don't understand, especially on like an 8-string. Like, God, like I'd take.
Well, that's my thing about 8-string guitars. I'm like, because people have asked me like, oh, you play 7s, why not an 8? And I'm like, because I don't want to just play single note riffs, because everything I'll write will sound like Meshuggah. So
right.
I don't want it. You know, obviously Meshuggah is a huge influence, but I don't want to sound like them. I don't want to.
Sure.
You know, everything is single note down there.
And clearly they have the ears to know, like, hey man, we're just gonna have to do single notes. Like, it's not gonna, you know, like. And actually, even years ago when I did a Butcher Babies record, Henry, he's a great guitar player, and he plays 8-string. And you know, that was actually my first introduction to 8-string, was Henry. And he was like, yeah, you know, we're just talking about it. And he's like, And he uses the whole guitar. He doesn't just like play the open low string and first 3 frets or whatever.
Yeah.
But he was like, no, when he's like, when you get down here, he's like, pretty much anything past here, you got to go single note. Like he kind of, he had it worked out. And that was my introduction to it, which was what made me want to go get, after making that record, I was like, God, if I do this again, man, I'm getting an Evertune version of this.
Now, when you have guitar players come in to record and you hand them an Evertune guitar, after a few minutes, are they like, man, I gotta get one of these things?
Yeah. So Matt Heafy, all his guitars have Evertunes now. He played one for about 8 seconds. And he was like, because he didn't have to slap the tune. And in fact, and then Lamb of God, Mark was like, he's like Mr. Dig. He don't want nothing new. He don't want no technology. He doesn't want he was like, I was like, yo, we should get one for the next record. And like I said, I'm not exclusive to him because I will give you some negatives about Evertunes. Like, the sustain is not as good, for sure, which is not necessarily always a problem. But on like a long held out chord, and I'm just kind of guessing, but I feel like the fixed bridge, it's just going to let it vibrate for longer for whatever reason. And I don't know if it's the same on Floyd's. I've actually never tested. I haven't used Floyd's as much as I've used Evertunes, but I can say without a shadow of a doubt, the sustain on an Evertune is not the same as it is on a fixed bridge. And it's because it's compensating, right? So like if you had a rubber band and you like snapped it between, 2 poles, it's going to go forever. But if you're just holding it, it's
constantly adjusting for what it's going
to lose energy, right? You're going to like knock the energy out of the string. So now in a practical application, that doesn't, that matters for the 8-bar break or the last hit of the song.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, you don't really notice it. But I have definitely noticed that. And there also is it's funny when you look at the waveform of an Evertune, because it's a physical spring, right? It's like it's adjusting from the second there's a snapback. If we're looking like microscopically at it, there is a snapback of the adjust. It's wild when you look at the waveform, because you'll see it like right after the strike is like where it like, as soon as the pick releases the string, there's a fraction of a second before it's like, because when you look at an Evertune on a tuner, it's not like, it's just like you hit the string and it goes, then you hit the next string and it's like, like the light just the only thing that changes is the fucking letter on the tuner. Like the note doesn't change at all. It doesn't wiggle. It doesn't go back and forth. It's like playing a keyboard.
My God.
Wow.
And listen, you can adjust it for vibrato, right? You can, this is like an ad for Evertune right now, but I mean, you can adjust it, but not all. I also feel like not all Evertune bridges are created equal, because I've definitely had some that I'm like, why is this not working? Like,
so it might be, I mean, it might be the same thing with like a Floyd Rose type thing, where if you have it set up properly, it's going to be fine. Where if you don't, you can have a problem.
And I imagine that like certain tunings and gauges of strings, because, and I think it's the same with the Floyd, if you probably have a certain gauge, you have to like add stronger springs in the back or whatnot, or, adjust them at least. The Evertunes work like that. You can't put any gauge string on any guitar. Like,
what do you have on that 8 string? Somebody questioned before, what do you have on the low, whatever the hell it would be? Do you know what?
I can't tell you, but I can tell you it's, there's a Diodario set for 8 strings, the XL strings, and whatever the low string is on that 8 string set is what I'm using. But yeah, there's some, for whatever reason, just that 7 string that I said that never sounds good. Like maybe that just a bunk Evertune. I don't know. Like,
or it might be a just bad piece of wood somewhere.
Yeah, it's just a shot guitar, one way or the other. But
yeah, it happens.
So anyway, but listen, it doesn't mean that like like Corey's guitars. He plays a Floyd Rose. With all Matt's guitars are ESPs with Evertunes, which makes tracking go incredibly fast, right?
If a stop and tune, like, and you go back and listen, like, dude, this one part's out of frig.
Yeah, I mean, you can still get a chord out of tune. You can't say it doesn't happen. You know what I mean? But generally speaking, generally speaking, it's like it allows the player to just play in the studio, which is kind of nice. Which is why Matt wanted to switch to him, because he was like, "Yo, this just removes I'm just playing the song now. Like I'm not like
worrying about fretting too hard.
Yeah, I'm not breaking my. Well, yeah, you can fret as hard as you want, right? It doesn't make a difference. So it just allows you to just play without worrying, and you just start to play freer. So, but then again, Corey, he uses Floyd Rose, and he has totally different pickups though, and a totally different guitar. And to be completely honest, I actually think I like Corey's guitar sound. I don't know if it's better, it's different, but for my taste, like it's a little meatier for sure. I don't know if but I can't say it's the Evertune necessarily either, because Corey and I were talking about this. I was like, I have Evertunes, and I never feel like they sound quite like this, but combination guitar, pickup, whatever, it just makes, there's too many variables in any situation for just to say like blanket. I like Corey plays Blackouts, which I feel like they're sick. I listen to him in his guitar and I'm like, these are awesome. But
Brian, don't you have Blackouts in the Jim Root pickups? Are those Blackouts or are they modified Blackouts?
The EMGs?
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're not going to tell you on it, but
right.
Yeah, but I imagine I get them in another guitar and I'm like, these are muddy. I don't know, they're not working for me. But in that particular scenario, they sound killer. Anyway,
sorry about that.
Cool. So, Josh, I know we're getting close to the end, but is there? Jay and I discussed this a lot, and I'll ask him, like, is there a band you would love just to work with that you never had the opportunity to, or you hear an album like, man, if I had this, I would have done this. You ever talk about that?
I rarely do. If I hear an album, I've done this. I'm professional enough to, it's weird. I more do the opposite. I'm like, God, that's so good. Like, I really appreciate other people's work. And wonder what, I also understand that the ending result in a record is dependent on so many variables outside of just me and my taste. And, I think with age and time of doing this, you start to recognize that. Actually, I think that's a lot of the reason why all the records sound the same, right? Is because it's age and time that a lot of the people don't have, and they're just chasing this one thing, But again, I digress on that particular topic. There's I mean, yeah, of course, there's bands I'd love to work with. I mean, if Metallica gives me a call, I'll be pretty excited about that, I think.
Well, I told you if that happens, I'm assisting. Even I'll do it for free.
Yeah, I mean, anything, there's bands, but I've also had the experience to I've worked with a lot of my heroes. I mean, working with Max Cavalera was for me, I mean, the Chaos AD, Roots, and Soulfly 1 are like a holy trinity to me. I loved those three records.
Yeah.
And so when I got to do a Soulfly record, I was like, fuck yeah. Well, actually, I did Killer Be Killed first.
Right.
And I was ecstatic to do Killer Be Killed. And if you haven't heard that record, which, I don't know, that's one of my favorite records I've ever made.
Which one? The first or second?
The first Killer Be Killed record. Actually, the new one's really good too. I think
new one's the shit.
The first one just holds a special place in my heart because it was it was 20 days. No one knew what they were doing. We didn't have really an idea of what the band was going to be. They'd gotten together and jammed and had a camcorder, recording of the tapes. And we extracted the audio from that and we're listening to it and just making songs up, and they just go in and jam them and I record them and, super on the fly, just figuring it out as we go. And that was a fun, but for me, Max Cavalera was one of my heroes. So in fact, I had met him again back at Soundtrack. Mm-hmm. This is a funny story. We run out of time because it's actually
no, dude.
No, you're good. You're good.
It's up to you.
Dude,
yeah.
I'm an assistant engineer now at Soundtrack. So I'm comfortable kind of talking with artists and stuff. I don't feel necessarily starstruck or anything. But Max Cavalera was in. He was doing Primitive with Andy Wallace. And, I just told you about the three records that I absolutely loved. And so he was in there, and I knew he had been in there mixing. So I was stoked. I'm like, oh my God, I might run into Max Cavalera. And then I'm working the night shift, and sure enough, Max is just sitting out in the lobby in like the public area where everybody is. And he's just talking with some dude, you know, and there's like another intern behind the desk. And, you know, we start standing there and I kind of like force my way into the conversation. And next thing you know, like me and Max and this other dude are just like shooting it, you know, and inside I'm like, this is fucking sick, you know, because it didn't feel weird. It didn't feel awkward or forced or anything. It just the kind of way it all rolled out. And I think we were, you know, he was talking about Andy. He's like, God, he's so good at the mixes. I don't like working with anybody else. And I was like, he's great, right? Like he's, you know, all of our heroes type of thing. And, you know, we're just talking about records and mixing and whatnot. And then Max, you know, after a couple minutes, Max gets up and leaves. And it's just me and this other guy. And, you know, I was like, just finished chatting with him for a while because, you know, we're just kind of in it. And then I was like, God, I got to get back to work. Hey, man, it was nice meeting your name. You know, Max has since left. I'm like, it was nice meeting you. What was your name again? He's like, Sean. I was like, nice to meet you, Sean. You know, and I'm fucking walk off. And the night intern that was behind the desk, who's kind of like a hippie looking kid, he's like fucking clearly dying behind the desk. Like, I don't know what's going on over there. And I'm like, is he that starstruck over Max Cavalera? Like, fuck, dude. Like, I mean, even I'm not like that tripped up over it. And then later on, I like passed him. He's like, do you have any fucking clue who you were just talking to? And I was like, Max Cavalera? He's like, the other guy. And I was like, Sean? He's like, Lennon? And I was like, what? He's like son of John? I'm like, oh shit, that was Sean Lennon. Like, it's fucking fun. Anyway, I was like, God, you're right. He totally looks like him. Like,
looks just like him. Yeah.
Yeah, he looks like Yoko Ono and John Lennon. Yeah, you're right. That was definitely him.
Hey,
Then he'd done that song right on the Primitive with Max Cavalera.
Was Max drinking was it root beer? What was his drink of choice?
Max Cavalera, Coca-Cola.
Yeah, because was it Coca-Cola?
We used to call it the hard drive for the session I remember was called Coke Stroke because like we were like Max is gonna have a Coke stroke because he's just fucking doing so much Coca-Cola.
Dude, when we did our actual last Gizmachi official tour was with Soulfly.
Yeah.
And it was just we'd always like joke about it because like we'd watch Soulfly from the side of the stage, right? Max would be out there singing, playing guitar, and then all of a sudden like a break would happen. And in the middle of a song, you know, he'd walk backstage and just they'd have like a 2-liter or a 3-liter, I forget, probably a 2-liter of maybe it was Coke. I thought it was root beer, but maybe it was Coke. And he would just literally grab the bottle, chug, go right back out, right up to the microphone. I'm like, do you realize how big of a burp I'd have if I went back and just chugged? And this would happen like numerous times during their set every night. And we don't like me, great. Especially me and Gilmore, we'd be like giggling. Like, how is he doing that? How?
Oh, that's awesome.
Because I'd walk back up to the microphone and be like Booger from Revenge of the Nerds, you know, just burping into the microphone in front of a few thousand people.
No, I was stoked, man. You know the first thing he said to me, dude, I fucking love Max. Let me just say, like right away, man, I love Max Cavalera. I love working with him. I love everything about him. The whole Killer Be Kill crew, because it's Troy, right, from Mastodon, and Greg from Dillinger Escape Plan, and they're awesome. Like, I mean, I've become very good friends with these guys. Like, I mean, Greg and I go out and shoot hoops on the weekends sometimes. Like, they're a good group of dudes. And but Max, the first time, so excluding the time a decade previous when I had met him that one time at Soundtrack, we're kind of meeting for the first time again. Here we are when I'm doing this Killer Be Killed record, and he walks in and he's like, hey, hey Josh, you know, I love the records that you make, and that Lamb of God record is fucking heavy, man. And I was like, thanks, dude. He's like, you know, like if you hear like one of my songs and you think you hear the riff and you think it's sheet, like you just tell me it's sheet and it's okay. I'll make better one. And I'm like, sick. Like, what more could I ask for, man? Like, you know, make a better riff. You got it.
That's awesome.
He's great, dude. And actually on that same session, everyone had kind of left and he was trying to work out a riff. And I'm like moving mics around in the live room. And he's like, you know, kind of like, he's like Mr. like stand in front of the cab and jam, like volume up. Like that's how he operates. And he was kind of like And he's like, and I was like, that's a sick, like, that's sick. And he's like, right? He's like, maybe the drums be like, like halftime. He's like, I'm like, yeah. And he's like, can you play it? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, dude. And I like sit down the kit. Next thing I know, I'm like jamming with Max. And it's funny because Nick Rowe, he was engineering on that session. He caught that on video because he knew he was like, oh shit, Josh gonna die when he sees this. And you can see a video of me in there just like jam with Max. I'm like, God, if you could tell 16-year-old Josh he was gonna jam with Max Cavalera, like he'd lose his mind. Anyway, fun
That's
session,
awesome.
super fun. And actually, that was my first introduction to Greg, and he's like, God, what a great vocalist, right? Like him and Troy too. They're like, that's a super fun project.
That's awesome. Yeah, the last Killer Be Killed album that came out last year, that was amazing. That was great. How was
they
the
did a
second
reissue
time
of
around?
vinyl of it like this week or something. Like it's got the picture on the vinyl. I actually hit the label up. I was like, I gotta get one of those. Sick.
How did that?
What'd you ask me about it? Sorry.
The second Killer Be Killed album. How did that come about?
I mean, the first one was so much fun, and honestly, I was terrified to make the second one. I was like, no way.
Why?
Like we should just, because it was lightning in a bottle. Like I just was like, can we like? We didn't know what we were making. No one knew anything. There was no expectations. And but I felt like we knocked it out of the park. And I was like, what do we do now? Like, we unfortunately have established what this band can do. And, I think I was the only one nervous to make another Killer Be Killed record. They were all fired up. And I was like, and it was definitely a different dynamic on this, right? It was a totally like, on the first record, what was cool about it was like nobody who's in charge. There was like this, like I realized on the first record in talking with Greg, Troy, and Max that they had actually not had a conversation about who the singer in the band was.
Mm-hmm.
And all of them being singers kind of assumed they would be the singer. And because Greg plays guitar in Killer Be Killed and writes a ton of the riffs. Right. So I think there was this, I realized, because I was like, who's going to be doing vocals on this? And Greg's like, I mean, I wrote a lot of the riffs, but like, I'd rather just run around on stage. So I think I'll just be the singer. And I was like, cool. Troy was talking about doing vocals to me earlier. I don't think anyone has had a conversation about this.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know who the fucking singer
Am I going to be the one that's going to have to, am I going to be?
And I kind of realized,
yeah,
I was like, I'm going to have to I got to rip this Band-Aid off. And so I just did. I was like, hey, I've had like multiple conversations with you guys about like separately about who's singing in this group. And we'd be crazy to not use all of your voices. So how about this? Because we kind of have some roughs now of the songs. I was like, how about you guys go out at the table, take a piece of paper, talk about which riffs that you kind of want to take as your own, and we'll start there. We'll divvy it out. And I was like, but I do think it's cooler if it's not song-based. Like, I think it's cooler if you guys share. And I think they were like, yeah, that's cool. I could hear Max doing this riff and me doing this. So immediately everyone's kind of like on the same page now. Like, all right, sick. Man, God, I wish I remember what the first song that we...
Snakes of Jehovah?
No, the first song where we actually got vocals on it. And it was so like a healthy competition. Like someone would do something and we're like, yo, what if you answered him and came in right after with this? And Greg's like, let me get in there. I got an idea, and he runs in, and then like as he's singing something, I'm like, yo, Troy, like, what do you think if we did this and he's like, yeah. And like next thing you know, we're just like literally it's a revolving door in the booth. And it's kind of like tricky for me because I'm like changing workflows with each guy because they don't all operate the same. But it was fun and it was fast. And the first one, From the beginning. I don't know how well you know that record, but whatever song that is at the end. And it we called it Yoda part because Troy's going, wrong it is. And we're like, it's a little Yoda speak, but it's okay. But it was the first point in time where we crisscrossed all their vocals at the end of this song where they're just like answering each other and like one, and then, Max comes in and answers after that. And I remember us all being like, this is fucking sick. Like, this is really cool. It was like a cool moment. I think actually Monty Connor, the A&R, he was there when he was in the studio while that was happening. And he was just like losing his mind. Like, this is the coolest thing I've ever been part of. Like it was a rad moment.
Anytime
anyway.
anybody mentions Monty Connor, I think of Cheez-Its because on Ozfest, when we were sharing a bus with Trivium, you know this story, Josh.
I was just thinking, like, I got to tell Monty, like you're associated with Cheez-Its. Somehow that's your claim to fame.
No,
Guys like signed some of the greatest bands of all time.
Yeah. So Monty Connor came out. I forget which. It must have been the New Jersey show when it was like 106 degrees outside, and that was like without the heat index, or And so he's on the bus and he's shooting the S with Trivium, and Jeannie's there. Our families came out to the show and everything. So obviously everybody's got their little stash of food. So I had a box of Cheez-Its with my name on them, right? So all of a sudden, I guess Monty Connor just sitting in the bus on the bench or whatever, or the couch, looks over and sees a box of Cheez-Its, and he just reaches over and starts eating them, right? So I don't notice this, but Jeannie, my wife now, girlfriend at the time, actually said something to him because she's like, hey, she sticks up for me, man. You know what I mean?
But you were signed to Roadrunner, right?
No, we were not signed. They turned us down. Monty Connor said no because Clown was like, oh, Roadrunner will sign you guys, no problem. And then he went to them, and they were like, I don't think it was the reason of the music. I just think
he turned you down over this Cheez-It thing.
Yeah, no, it was before that. It was before that.
He's I think it was like girlfriend shut me down on the Cheez-Its.
Yeah, no, I think it was more along the lines of like, we don't want to sign your band type of thing. Like, I don't know. I know there was more of a business thing to it, but sure. Anyway, who knows? Maybe he just thought we suck, which is.
I mean, there's a lot to every
Yeah,
there's a lot to every deal.
Yeah, but anyway, Jeannie said something about I forget. If she's watching, she'll remember. But it was funny. I was like, damn. Yeah, like, that's my girl, man.
I'm gonna go after the head of Roadrunner A&R over some Cheez-Its.
Yep. She's like, I think she said something like, I don't think your name's on that box. Something. It was something. Like, wow. Yep. Oh. If a girl does that for you, you got to marry her.
You got to marry her.
She'll defend you over some Cheez-Its.
She's like, I will tank my boyfriend's career over these Cheez-Its.
I don't even. She might not have known who he was either at the time, But
there's no way she did.
No. But it was funny. Anyway,
that's great.
Yeah,
that's great.
Isn't it crazy, Josh? Like, it's 2021 right now. We recorded. I think we started recording the imbuing in November of 2004, right? Because then we took the break for Thanksgiving and then came back in December, middle of December or beginning of December, and then finished it. Oh. So it's almost been 16 years, dude, since we recorded that album. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's wild. I actually ran into Clown recently.
Did you?
It was pretty funny the way that I ran into him too. I was someplace and they're like this, COVID restrictions and everything, and everyone's masked up. This is a couple months ago. And
don't tell me he had his clown mask on.
No. That actually would have been awesome. That would have been awesome. Said masks on, man. He's in the grocery store, full of getup. No, I was like, we're like an industry thing, and I come walking. I'm like, the person showing me around. It's like, we have this over here, we have this over here, and then Art Cruz comes by, and we're hanging out. And I was like, let's explore. Have you been out the back? I haven't been out the back yet, and let's see what's over here. And like we walk out, and I play a lot of basketball, and Art and I, when we're recording together, have played a lot of basketball together. So anyway, we're like walk out back. We both got our masks on and everything. And I turn left, and there's like a big thing of hedges, but I can't see around the hedges. But I do see in the parking lot there's a fucking basketball hoop, and I like super. I'm like, they got a fucking basketball hoop here, like. And then I like look to my left, and I see Clown just like sitting under an easy up over there, and I'm like, oh shit. And I like just pull my mask down, and he's like, you didn't have to. I already knew it was you. He's like, it was loud, but it was ultra positive. I knew it was you. This is funny. I got to shoot it with him for a little bit.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's a ride, dude. Every time I have a run-in with him, it's always the most hysterical thing ever. You know, I used to carry like a list of quotes from that session in my phone from Clown.
Really?
Yeah, because you know, and I for the longest time I had a running list in my phone. I was like, you know, just because he was fucking funny, man. Like, remember when he was like, we were like trying to find a place to eat? Oh no, that was actually I worked with him on another record after yours. And we're trying to like park, and he's like getting fucking pissed off. He like pulls in a park space, and there's like parking for like the gym only or some shit. And he's like, "What the fuck?" And he's like, pulls out, and someone's like, "You park over there." And he's like, "No, fuck that. I'm parking over here where it's fucking free America." Just everything he said, I would always write it down. I'm like, God, this is so good. I don't even remember. Like, I had a phone full of them. And I can't believe like I deleted them all. This is because that was back in the Palm Pilot days, dude.
Oh yeah, and the BlackBerry and all that stuff. I
Oddly enough,
remember. Sorry, go
I
ahead.
was talking to someone else about that, and they were like, "Yeah, Corey Taylor does the same thing. He has a list of Sean Cran quotes as well." And I was
Clownisms.
like, really?
We used to
He
call
goes
them
into-
clownisms.
Cranurisms.
Cranurism. There you go. That's a good one too. No, but I
Great.
remember being nervous, like, you know, working before I knew him, obviously, working with Clown, because I'll quick story real quick. When we did our showcase, right, it was on an Easter Sunday in New York City, and I guess it would have been 2003 at the time. And long story short, we get a phone call. Sean Kane, our old singer, got a phone call from Clown saying, "Hey, I'm going to be in New York City on Easter Sunday. You guys are going to rent SIR Studios, and I'm going to come in there. I'm going to bring somebody from a record label. And if, you know, if you 15 seconds in, if you guys aren't blah, 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 I'm just going to leave." So I get this phone call from Sean, our old singer, and he's telling me all this. And I'm like, holy crap, I'm nervous as hell, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, we ended up having to rent the studio, and they were closed on Easter Sunday. So we had to pay a whole bunch of extra money to get the studio open. And then we had to pay money to get an engineer in there to like set everything up, obviously. And it was just like a very, and Mike was sick at the time. He had a little bit of a cold, which was the norm back then for him. And he was obviously, he was the one doing a lot of the melodic vocal stuff. But I remember being like nervous as hell, man. It's like we had to be there at
dude.
11 or noon or something. And
Dude, showcases suck.
dude, and it's, you know, when you're in front of a crowd, it's one thing. You can feed off the energy and you see people getting into it, but when it's literally like, it was Corey Brennan, Sean Clown, and Clown's security guard at the time, and the engineer, and that was it. So I'm thinking like, man, we can blow this in a minute.
Yeah.
But obviously we did a decent enough job, but it was a very weird thing. Like, obviously you see these guys at the time, nobody knew what they looked like, and, you know, the whole serious thing. And I don't even know if he wants me saying this stuff, but when we recorded that album, Josh, we had so much fun. It was obviously we got the album done, but we had some goofy stuff happening.
I mean, sure, Clown loved to hear you. There was a good experience. It was a good experience for me, him. I mean, I feel like everyone walked away from that feeling pretty.
Yeah, dude. And, you know, he was funny. He was fun. And again,
I remember he was imitating. He was because Disaster Pieces just came out.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that? This is actually one. Like he was. I remember Clown was like we were someone was watching Disaster Pieces. It just came out. I think we got got a free copy from someone at Roadrunner or something.
Yeah.
And like Clown comes out and watches it and is like, I think like it's mixed down there, just fucking blah, blah, blah.
And he does it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. He's like, fucking sometimes Nick just gets down there like, blah, 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 like, and then he's like, shit, I think I fucked up my back.
Yep.
He's like first out laughing.
Yes.
Oh god. I have nothing but good.
He was doing the windmill with his hair and everything. And
he got right into it, man. I have I have nothing but great memories of doing that record with Sean, with Clown. That was super fun. In fact, I'm telling you, every time I run into him, there's always like, I love his personality. I really do. He's a fucking crack up.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
That's awesome. Is there, Josh, anything you're working on or you're excited for people? I don't know necessarily now, but is there something that you're excited for people to hear? Well, obviously the new Trivium album.
And it's funny. I'm actually pretty excited about this Atmos mix. I've been having so much fun here at the Genelex studio, like doing it. And they do the binaural thing too, so you can hear it in like earbuds as well. I mean, it doesn't translate as nearly as sick as it does in this like ridiculously awesome, Genelec setting that I'm sitting in. Anybody watching, Genelec is a monitor company that makes speakers, and they've built themselves a real fancy, an Atmos setup, Dolby Atmos. But it does on the binaural setting, there is a sense of forward and behind and a little bit above. They've done a pretty decent job, but I think about as good as you can do. And it's fun to like listen to them both. It's just fun, I've actually, and I've already mixed the record. So,
well, that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, when you're mixing something like that, I mean, how do you take the mix that you already did, the stereo mix, bring it in, and then kind of just move things where they sit?
Sure. Yeah. You disassemble
obviously you want it to sound like the record. You don't want to like have a completely different mix, right?
Yeah. So yes, but there's certainly like, and it actually worked out well on this Trivium record because there's so much like there's a lot of orchestrations and things like that. So, even in the first song they released, in Court of the Dragon, has like, the whole like symphonic like intro. So there's room for like things to move around and do like exciting things. And the real trick, honestly, about it is, we rely so much now on a 2-bus like crush.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's part of the mix, right? There's this like pumping kind of like aggressive sound, and to do the Atmos mix you have to have it all at minus 18 because basically it's all going to sit in an encoded wave file. This is kind of my understanding of that reasoning, but all of those channels are going to sum together, and it can only be so loud, right? Like a stereo mix, you can just pin it up against the top and just crush it as loud as you want, and that is not an option. And in a weird way, as like a mixer, I feel like I walked away from here a better mixer, because you have to strip away that relying on compression to hold things together, and you literally just have to kind of balance it out and set things and ride faders and keep it all floating where you want it to float. And it's the more spacious, and
More
you
dynamic.
kind of go it's more dynamic. You kind of go through a little bit of a learning curve on it though, where you're like, at first you're frustrated that it's like, how do I make this knock? And then you almost kind of realize like, that's not necessarily the goal. Like it's a picture now, like it has to, and it's true. Like you can hear the elements in the binaural setting on the Dolby mix. You can hear the individual elements like way clearer than you could hear them on a stereo mix, because they're like clearly all have their own separate space.
Yeah, there's more. Yeah.
And it's not just a big mash. And does it punch the same way that the stereo mix does? No, but I think if you're switching to this, you're looking for a different experience anyway. So it's been fun, that's for sure. I've been having a great time, and honestly, like everybody at Genelec has been like so cool to work with. It's been a lot of fun. Good introduction. I'm gonna do more of these for sure.
So then, how does it differ from? Remember, I forget how many years ago they were doing like the DVD 5.1 releases.
So,
like, how does it differ from that?
On my end, on the mixing side, it's very similar. My approach is anyway, because I did a lot of that. I don't know if you know that. I actually did a lot of those. I did some for Avenged Sevenfold. I did some for Chevelle. I really enjoyed doing those. Although the problem always with DVD, DVD audio, first of all, like they were wildly different and terrible, which I imagine that's a lot of that going on with Dolby too. But if you really wanted to get technical, I could explain some things that I think are big mistakes and things that aren't. And you probably talk to someone else that completely disagrees. Like I remember actually I bought the Metallica Black on DVD audio.
I got it somewhere around here, right? Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
I was one of my least favorite ones because like a lot of back then, everyone was buying these like 5.1 surround sound systems, and you got the 2 little satellites and this like piece of shit little middle speaker and like 2 other speakers. And then you got this fucking massive sub that like everything bass manages, all the speakers bass managed to the sub. And they sounded cool. The problem was if you, and I don't know if this is like a boring conversation.
No,
so
it's not at
cut
all.
me
Keep
off
going.
because in a theater setting, that subwoofer is an LFE, right? It's low frequency effects. So like if you're watching a movie in a movie theater, that subwoofer is not playing until the submarine goes underwater and the whole place goes, or you know what I mean? But like if there's music playing, it's not going. There you go.
Not that you can see it because the shit's black. I have that one, and then I have the Empire from Queensryche 5.1.
There you go.
Yeah.
But the if I remember correctly, that Metallica black one, and I actually feel bad because I'm kind of like I'm trying to dump on whoever mixed it. It's just a difference in taste, I guess. So Andy Wallace was working with me on doing DVD audio, and we had a long discussion about what we thought the standard should be. And an audiophile will tell you like, or some audiophiles will tell you like, oh, back then they're like, it has to be the band. And it's like you're at the concert, you put the crowd behind you and some reverb behind you, but you still set up the band. But you got to remember that center channel, that was for dialogue.
Mhm.
Like, so if you were watching a movie and you were sitting off to the side in a normal speaker setting, now you've moved yourself closer to the speaker on the wall. So the dialogue shifts to closer to where you are. So if you're in a movie theater, it would be weird because like you'd hear the voice here, but you're seeing the picture there. So they made the center channel with the concept of that way, no matter how far I move from the screen, the voice is still coming from the screen. And for theater, that's what you want.
Yeah.
If you're mixing a record, and this was, that particular Metallica one, I just happened to notice. So I got this, I imagine in a studio or in a theater, it might have sounded sick, but in my home system, if you pan the kick and the snare to the center channel, you're literally asking like a little, like these little like Kenwood or Bose or whatever home speaker systems of the time, stuff now is probably way better, but you were asking the speaker that was like 3 inches to carry the whole load of a kick and a snare. Like at least you can divide the work up. Phantom center, right? They call it. If you're hearing something in the middle in headphones, there's no speaker in the middle. They call it phantom center, right? Like you guys probably already know this stuff, maybe don't. But the difference between phantom center and physical center is like a big decision because it affects how you hear it. And I remember some of those DVD audio things, there were people that would pan stuff to the center, would pan it to the center channel. And I was like, fuck the center channel. Pan that shit the same way you would on a record. You're still hearing it in the center, but the difference is it's got more weight to it because there's two speakers physically doing the work that you're asking one little directional thing to do, which is also cool if you're right here in front of it. But as soon as you move, the kick's like you've lost it. Where if you have it in both
It's
speakers,
down the street.
you know what I mean? Like at least you get closer to it and it's like even louder, you know, like that's, and with drums in particular, that's how I want to hear them. So, but the DVD audio thing, I mean, it's gone, right? But that was the Wild West of this 5.1 thing. Like no one knew what the fuck they were doing and everyone was trying to figure out. And they had this low frequency channel, which we basically said, fuck the low frequency channel too, because in movie theaters, you send explosions, you send effects to it, and that's what it's for. If you mix a record and you have a bass guitar and you're like, well, low frequency means subwoofer. Let me just put the low into the subwoofer. When you take it to that same home stereo system that 90% of the people that were buying these things were listening to,
can't handle it.
Well, they were doubling down, right? Because the little speakers were already bass managing their bass to that subwoofer. So you're literally taking all the bass that would have been in the mains, putting them in the sub plus the low end that you've sent in through the LFE channel. So now all of a sudden you have like triple the bass and you got this big woofy mess. And I would buy a bunch of them and they had that same thing. I'd be like, whoa, turn the sub down. Like I used to have to reach behind that thing like constantly and adjust because of that.
And then when you're done listening to it and you're going back to watch a movie, you got to turn it back up, turn it back to normal. Yeah.
So, I think back then it was a little wilder as people I think there's a better understanding of what to do with that kind of stuff now, in Atmos in particular. Now they're adding height, right? But the DVD audio thing didn't take off because of all the things that I'm explaining right now. Like you had to be sitting in the center, you had to have a house set up, and you go over people's house that have these surround sound systems and they have like fucking two shelves on two speakers on top of each other on a bookshelf, and then like I don't know, the other one's over there, and it's chaos, whatever you were listening to. You might be listening to like a solo, I don't know, like glockenspiel, like just coming out of the left speaker, like blazing loud, because that's what you're sitting next to. It's like the whole thing was, if you had it set up right, it sounded sick, but most people didn't. But the the Dolby audio, they're working with Apple and stuff to make it translate to stereo, and whether they pull it off well or not is up for debate. But the reality is, if you can do it in stereo, then this thing might have a chance to really have some life behind it, because all of a sudden we're all got earbuds, we've all got headphones, and you're not asking the listener to set up their house with a fixed position where they can hear it, because they're carrying around the fixed position with them at all times. So it has, I think it has the ability to have more life than the DVD audio thing did. But as far as the mix perspective, it has a lot of the same challenges and like approach, so to speak. That was a long-winded answer for that shit.
No,
but I have been immersed in it all week.
That's why people are here right now, is the technical thing and a lot of the stuff about recording and mixing and all that stuff. So
yeah, that's my that's what I've been doing all week. So it's, a lot of conversations like this have been happening, and not everybody agrees with me. So don't take anything like that. Like, especially on Center Channel stuff. Someone watching this right now is like, nah, fuck, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, it's fine. And it's fine. Like, right. That's why we do it. So it can be, we all can paint our own pictures and do things that we think are exciting. And besides, it's going to be out in like a week or so anyway. Listen to it and be like, man, he fucking blew it on this. He was like, everything that was horse shit. We allowed to swear on this?
Yeah, well, we are now.
All right.
Yeah, 2 hours later. Josh, can I swear, guys? We got the F-bomb tally. Somebody on the chalkboard over there. 37, guys.
More like 4. Was there like 37?
44.
Damn.
Wow. Well, Brian, I know you probably have another million questions, but Josh has been here for over 2 hours, and he's a tired man. He's been busting his ass, and I know Brian. Do you have any? I know you have it in there. Any Gizmochi questions for Josh before we go? Because you always ask me the type of stuff about that. So I figure before we go, maybe
Well, we have another 24 hours. I can go all night with Josh. But I guess my last Gizmochi question is, what do you think of the new album?
He wasn't involved in the new album. He doesn't want to talk about that.
Well, no, I'll tell you about it, actually, because I thought it was great. I really did. I thought...
and his feed goes right as soon as he's about to talk about it. Oh, no. Oh, no. He's back.
Oh, there you go.
Back.
There you
Okay.
go.
Was that intentional? Like, you're like, nuke it.
No, we thought you did it.
I'll tell you what I thought. See you later. Thanks for calling me.
I'll tell you what I thought about it.
No, I thought, if you didn't hear me before, I said I thought it sounded great. I thought like Mark crushed it on the mixes. I thought that you did a great job recording. I thought it was great. I really did. In fact, Corey and I from Trivium were talking about it while we were doing the last record. He thought it sounded awesome.
Really?
That's awesome.
Yeah. It sounded good. I thought it was a really good record.
Wow. It's cool to know that
people listen.
Yeah, people listen,
Yeah, man.
That's cool. Well,
No,
tell Corey I said hello. I haven't talked to him since 2005.
Everybody involved did a good job. That's what I think.
That's great.
It's cool to hear you say that. And if we do a third
viewing, it was no imbuing, but it was all right.
It wasn't as fun as the imbuing, I'll tell you that much. The nightmare recording your own crap. My God.
Way less bladder buster sugar bomb coffees.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we can't handle them anymore as much as we used to.
No,
Josh, I mean, you might be able to speak on this too, but like I've always, because the initial plan was I was going to mix the record, right? And then it just got to the point where like, you can hear somebody else's, like somebody like, hey, can you mix our record or mix whatever? When they send you like a demo or an unmixed, just a rough thing that they put together, you can in my opinion, you can kind of visualize mentally what you think, where you think you want to go with it and all that stuff. And you can kind of paint a picture in your head. But for some reason, my personal experience with our own music, it was very tough to do that. Like I would be second guessing every move I made. Then I'm getting different mix notes from the rest of the band getting pulled, and I get a phone call, hey, that blah blah blah. So I'm changing something, and then then I send another mix out, and then somebody else is saying, hey, what happened to that blah blah blah. So it came to the point where I was like, guys, this album is never going to come out if I mix it. It's like it's a nightmare, and no, one person or two people might be happy, but there's no way I can make everybody happy. And it got to that point where I was like, somebody else, kind of has to do this, and it got to that point. So I'm glad I didn't mix it, to be honest, because now I can listen to it from an outside perspective. And
it's even that way with your own productions, at least for me sometimes. Like sometimes it's way easier for me to mix somebody else's record, than my own production, just because I have certain feelings about things going into it that taint my kind of objective listening, and I'm aware of it too, and I'll go back and listen to a rough mix that I did and be like, fucking rough mix smokes this. Like, just when I wasn't worrying about it, it sounded awesome. And then as soon as I started caring, all of a sudden, like,
you just start tinkering. Wait, what about do this? What if I?
Yeah,
it sounds good, but wait a minute.
Yeah. But a lot of times you find you'll do like the same EQ move that you did when you were recording it. Like you're like, oh, I wanted to notch out a little bit of this when I recorded it, and I did. And now I'm mixing. I'm like, don't I want to notch out some of that? And I already did that. Like I did that. Now it's like too much. And, that kind of stuff happens. It's, you get around it, but you can certainly drive yourself crazy. That's for sure. But I never seems to happen with other people's productions, though. I'll put up someone else's record and just start ripping through it.
Are you burned out a little bit?
Huh?
Are you burned out a little bit? Are you still? Because that's one. I think we talked about it on the phone last month or a couple weeks ago. Like especially with the amount that you work, how do you kind of avoid that burnout type of like, oh my God, I need time to like,
Yeah. I'm not burnt out. Well, I mean, like right this second. Yeah. I'm like,
no. I don't mean right this second. I'm just saying.
But I mean, right this second, I kind of am.
Yeah.
I had a long week, super fun week. But there's like, no, I mean, I try to pace myself with that stuff. There are certainly times where I've been like, I am at the end, man. Like I'm bouncing too many projects. Like I need a break. You got to take them when you can. And sometimes you have to like put the brakes on, and, I think that's like anybody with any job, right? Like, you take a couple days off and you're like, all right, I'm ready to come back in. It's so easy. It's hard with bands because in our business, there's this sense of we have to work 7 or 8 days a week, or we're being lazy. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, it's okay. We can take the weekend
12
off.
to 14-hour days and stuff like
right?
that.
Like, no, that's fucking horseshit. In fact, if being completely honest, that's one of the great things about a lot of the bands I work with nowadays is they're all professionals and they don't operate like that. Not saying that some don't, but like, at Trivium, we come in at noon and we leave at 5. But we hammer while we're in, like it's like work gets done and we're always ahead of schedule, Lamb, it's a similar thing. We there's plenty of, we've even joked about it. Like Mark and I have joked, someone came in the studio and we were in there talking. Is this what you guys do all day? You just sit around and talk? And we're like, I mean, this part of the process, but like when we work hard. But yeah, we're up here gabbing right now. It's like, this is half the reason you do this job, right? It's for the hang.
Yeah.
I mean, when you talk about the record 10 years later, rarely you're talking about riffs or anything. You're talking about,
rarely you talk about the actual song or music making. You're talking about the stuff that happened in between.
Dumb shit that happened that you laughed about for 10 years. I mean, that's the half the reason we do this job. So, I've burnt myself out. I've not, but then you take a break and you get back to it. You just got to be aware of it and try to stay in the moment. That's for sure.
That's great.
Well, Josh, man, thank you so much, dude.
Nah, dude, this is fun. This is cool just to like chat with you. It's been like a long time, so it's cool stuff.
Yeah, and for me, I'm not talking about anyone else, but for me, this was awesome, and thank you for all you've done, and I'm excited for what you're going to continue to do.
Yeah, dude. Hopefully, you'll have some good ones coming up soon. Here's hoping.
I appreciate it.
All right, guys.
Well, don't leave yet. Don't leave yet.
No.
We're gonna say our goodbyes. Don't exit yet.
Johnny.
Johnny, do you want to come? What was it again?
What, the next show?
No, Johnny, are you there?
There I am. Can you hear me?
There
Yes.
you go.
Here
Yeah.
I am.
Back.
Play us out.
Thank
What
you.
do you mean play us out? Like a song?
All right.
He's like,
Well, hey,
I've been working on his riff. Hold on.
man, hey, that was a great show, you guys. I listened to most of it, but I've been vacuuming and cleaning like my place this entire time.
Johnny's been a bachelor for a week, so he's the house is a pigsty.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, you gotta clean it before his wife gets back.
Oh, yeah. That's
do.
Yeah. Yeah.
guys.
So thank you so much, everybody, for watching this. Thank you, channel members. Wow, Keith Campbell.
Hey
Thank you,
now.
Keith.
Thanks, Keith.
Thank you, everybody, for the super chats and the supporting the show. Thank you so much to our channel members. You guys are awesome. And tomorrow,
Laguna Palms.
is it tomorrow? Not tomorrow. Friday. Jay, we have a guest on Friday.
Do we?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Michael Christopher. He has a new book, Van Halen, The Eruption and the Aftershock.
Do I have a PDF of that?
I'm gonna have to send you one.
Yeah, you're gonna have to, you son of a That's see Eddie's face right there. That's my reaction right now. What?
Wait, which one is it?
Yeah.
That one.
Mm-hmm.
So this Friday, join us here on Johnny Beane TV. And again, today I talked to Brad Talinsky and Chris Gill on over on Amazon for an Amazon Live for their book, Eruption: Conversations with Eddie Van Halen. Was awesome. Link down below. So awesome. And Josh, great to meet you, man.
I forgot. Josh, social medias, plug yourself. Where can people find you? I know you're not a huge, you're too busy working to be on social media all the time.
No. Actually, with me, it's like I don't like to post about anything I'm doing until it's out. So I don't do a ton of in studios, although I did one this week. But yeah, I'm Josh Wilbur Music. Right? Yeah, I think that's what I am.
Is it that one?
No,
Well, there's the website. Is that
oh,
it?
that is my web. I think that is my website.
That's somebody else. Wait a minute.
That's the one I found.
I think that's me. I don't know that somebody runs that.
That's
that is.
somebody's site.
I'm pretty sure that's me. But Josh Wilbur Music is my Instagram. I think. Let me check that right now.
I think you're right. John, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I forgot to have Josh plug his
Josh
that's cool.
Wilbur Music is my Instagram.
Okay.
Awesome.
Plugged up.
Awesome.
There we go.
All right.
Great.
Good stuff.
Awesome. All right. Rock on, everybody. We'll see you guys Friday. All right. Have a good night.
Don't leave.
Take care.
Yeah, don't hang up. Johnny Beane TV. Bye.